Welcome to Film Strip, movie reviews presented by Continuous Play Podcast. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Kurt.
And I'm choking on my ambition. This is Nick.
And this is our review of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, starring Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, Ben Mendelsohn, Donnie Yen, Alan Tudyk, Riz Ahmed, Zhang Wen, Forrest Whitaker, the ghost of Peter Cushing, sort of, and Mads Mikkelsen for like 3 scenes. Directed by Gareth, I made that Godzilla movie nobody remembers, Edwards, on a budget of $200 million, already grossed over $555 worldwide as we record this. It's the end of 2016, boys. We said we were going to end it with a Star Wars movie. Yes, it's been out a little bit. We had a lot of travel schedules trying to get stuff done, but we are here to talk about it. And I got to tell you, I'm actually kind of glad we waited a little bit to talk about this one because, of course, with any Star Wars film, there's going to be a lot of talk about it out there, and of course we'd be remiss too not to mention that Carrie Fisher has passed away just in the time since this film has come out, the famous Princess Leia, and even as we record today, her mother died as well, Debbie Reynolds. So 2 big losses there in Hollywood, and you know she's not in this. I mean, there's a Princess Leia in this for a computer moment, but so we're not going to talk about her much, but would be remiss if we didn't mention that. Before we get into Rogue One, though, I wanted to ask you two guys something. Just in general, your thoughts about this idea, the idea of we're going to do these spin-off stories in the Star Wars universe. So, Nick, you're kind of new to our Star Wars club here because Kurt and I have done the other 7 films. Let's start with you on that one. What do you think about the idea of doing spin-off films that aren't tied to trilogies per se?
Spin-off movies, great idea. I mean, one problem, and even though I haven't been part of the Star Wars series up until now, we've always constantly brought up George Lucas and the prequels. Almost on like every podcast, it's like Fatal Attraction. We got some like Star Wars reference in there. But as far as doing like spin-offs, it is a good idea. I mean, as far as like this universe, it's a universe. I mean, you can't get bigger than that. You know what I mean? And we're talking like space universe here. But my reservation when hearing about this was like, oh my God, you guys are taking like a 2-sentence plot point mention from the original one and doing an entire movie on it. It's like, okay, what's next? Is it going to be the Bothans before episode 6? Or is it going to be like, Darth Plagueis or whatever it is, or, some shit like that. I mean, so to me, it was like, optimistically curious about it, I guess would be the proper way to describe it. Excited. I think the next spinoff when we're talking about like Han Solo has me less excited. So I just hope that when they are talking about these spinoffs, at least when we go in later in series, is that they do more of a grandiose and doing something a little bit outside the box, as opposed to, even though this isn't a part of the 6 or 7 film series, it really fits in there. So it's a spinoff, but not really in my opinion, but that's kind of my opinion of it before I actually saw it.
What about you, Kurt?
Well, I was excited when Disney bought Star Wars, and they immediately said they were going to be making the next trilogy and also some tertiary spin-offs just set in the Star Wars universe, which was and is still an amazing idea. Pretty sure this movie was, I might remember it wrong, but I remember this being in the cards from the start, a movie about the people who stole the Death Star plans, and right away I thought I thought that was a good idea for a movie. And I remember them saying it was going to be its own trilogy at one point, which I am so glad didn't happen, because it's already like,
yes,
you don't need this stretched over.
Well, Kurt, that's when Peter Jackson was involved.
Yeah, sure. And I was super excited for this movie, but then like almost right away it was announced that Gareth Edwards would be directing this movie, and I instantly lost all interest and hope for this movie because of his version of Godzilla, which I saw in the theater in 2014, and I could not have hated more for so many reasons that could all be blamed on him. That were clearly his stylistic ideas that I just did not blend with me at all. But then I saw the trailers, and I thought they were awesome. They gave me some hope, and I particularly loved how they handled the music. Even now, I watch those trailers. The way they blend the Force theme with the Empire theme throughout the ads for that movie is just fantastic. I wonder if that's the work of the original composer, Alexander Desplat, who got replaced by Michael Giacchino or not. But those trailers used to convince me that, a movie was worth seeing until last year. It was Avengers 2 that really changed my mind. Maybe I should hold back on excitement after trailers, and actually Force Awakens as well, as much as I like that movie, because those trailers look so much better than the final product. I got more of a boost from those trailers than the actual movie. So even if the signs were good and even if the reviews are good, I really had no real hopes for this movie. I just knew I had to see it.
Well, last time when we talked about Force Awakens, I went into that movie as cold as I've ever gone into any film. Like, I watched the trailer twice. I didn't know any of the spoilers. I stayed off social media for when it came out because it was a week later when we finally reviewed it. So I just totally ignored everything about it. Just went and experienced it. We had a review of it, and I ended up liking it. And I've seen it a couple times since, and I stand by what I reviewed for it. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I think my tagline for the podcast was "It's Force nostalgia," and mostly I like it. And that was fun. This one, though, I decided, you know what? I'll just consume everything I can about it. And I inadvertently, after seeing a couple of the trailers, we're talking with another friend of mine that's a big Star Wars fan, and I said, I have two guesses about this movie. And I threw them out there to him, and he went and saw it opening night, and he said, have you seen it yet? I said, no, not yet. And he said, well, I just want to let you know that your two guesses were dead on. And I'll tell y'all what they were. I had a feeling that once we had gotten through cast and who was going to be in it, and it was going to be Mads Mikkelsen was this, Felicity Jones's father, and he had been coerced into building the Death Star. I'm like, well, that's going to explain the porthole that you can blow the whole thing up with, and that's going to be what he tells her at some point. So there's that. Bing got that right. And I had also guessed that, spoiler alert, everybody was going to die. I said, because you can't have any of these people hanging around, because we surely don't mention them in the original trilogy unless Lucas is going to get another cut of those. And please, God, don't let that happen, and we're going to force them in there. So we've never heard of any of these people before. We'll never hear from them since. I'm like, well, everybody's going to have to die because this is Suicide Squad if there ever was one. And he said, you're right about the second one too. And so I went into it knowing that the two things I had kind of figured out on my own about it were exactly that. And I said, okay, so knowing that, can this be entertaining at all? Can I get anything out of this? Because Nick, I'm with you. I thought, well, of all stories to pick, this one, we know how it ends. Like, the hardest thing about doing any kind of a side story or a spinoff or a prequel or anything, especially when you jut it up next to where the other films have been, is how it ends. The prequels, for all their problems and stuff, the thing we knew is that it was going to end at a gap. There was going to be about a 20-year gap from where they ended and where A New Hope began. So we knew that they could tell a lot of things that we didn't know. So okay, we had room to explore, but we know how this movie ends. They get the friggin' plans and they blow up the Death Star. So I've seen this. So how can they make this interesting? And the way to have done that would be to have really neat characters, to send us to some different worlds. And from what it looked like in the trailers, we're going to have a lot of action and a lot of battles. This was going to be a Star Wars movie. There was going to be a lot of war in this movie, it looked like. And I thought, okay, wow, I'm down for that. And then I went and saw it, and we'll talk about the rest of it as we get into it. But those were my thoughts going in. But as far as spin-off films go and that kind of thing, I like the idea. I really do. I'm curious to know if this was maybe the best option to start with. We'll talk about that throughout the podcast tonight. But I got
to cut you off, Jay. We're talking like spin-off prequel here. I'm sorry, prequel. I hate that word. But did any of you guys get visions of a movie that came out a few years ago? I know Kurt was talking about beautiful trailers where the movies let you down, and prequel spin-offs. You guys know the one I'm going to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Prometheus.
Yeah, very much.
Did you guys get any Did you guys get that feeling at all? Because I think we can all go on record
Felicity Jones was Noomi Rapace at one point. No kidding. I was like, that's got to be Noomi's stunt double, because they look alike and they're about as blank, so together, and they're sort of.
Yeah, fun. That was kind of my thing too. Is like, okay, Prometheus, I knew going in there, okay, it's like, it's a prequel, it's a spin-off, but if this is going to like encounter them and no one knew about that except for the corporation, how can these people all live? You know what I mean? It was kind of like that same feeling where it was like, kind of already can kind of guess the ending in a way, but it was still kind of left me intrigued. I don't know. It's just that movie just kept on popping into my head when I saw this, where I'm like, beautiful trailer, but it's the same freaking concept again.
I want to throw this out there though. When James Cameron made Titanic, I said what every other idiot in the world said. Well, we know how that ends, and for what it's worth, that was a
you did not know how Titanic
film.
ended. Like, you were going to know that lady all suddenly like forego like 50 years of marriage and kids to go have a death wish with Leo, who she met for like 2 days.
No, I knew the boat was going to sink. That's what I meant. But could it be something worth watching along the way? Well, yeah, I'd say it was. It's not the greatest movie of all time, but Titanic, for what it was at its day, particularly in the theaters on the big screen, that looked phenomenal at the time. 1997, that doesn't hold up as great now, but at the time that looked pretty amazing. And I thought, okay, you know what? Cameron did the right thing there with a story that we know how it ends. How can you make that interesting? This one, though, Prometheus, to take your example, we're going to see the construction of the space jockey ship, and we're going to see where the aliens come from. And we got none of that. We got a lot of garbage, that we've talked about that looked amazing on the screen, but it just didn't have anything to it. And so, yeah, it's a fine line you got to walk with these things. And Kurt, I want to come back to something you said a minute ago, and I don't want to review the whole thing here, but I know I had my problems with the Godzilla movie, mostly that Godzilla wasn't in it. What was your big beef with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla? Because I've seen his other movie, and it was actually pretty good.
Well, see, I'm skipping ahead to like how much I like this movie, but this movie makes me want to go back and watch his previous movie, because I actually did not like Monsters or Godzilla, and for the same reasons I didn't like Monsters was why I didn't like Godzilla, which was his whole style in Godzilla and Monsters was to not show the action and to cut away from it, and he did it, and you can do that once or twice, but you do that so many times. They did that so many times in Godzilla. It got so irritating. I've never been so like pissed off watching a movie in the theater, because I pay $13 or whatever to see a movie called Godzilla, and you don't see Godzilla. You see what's his name? What's Aaron Taylor Johnson or whatever?
You don't even get Bryan Cranston. So that was the cockpiece of that movie.
Him in his great wig. We didn't get to see him as much.
He was in the trailer more than he was in the film. But go ahead.
So with that, I was instantly, I did not want Gareth Edwards to make this movie, because I just assumed he was hired because of Godzilla. So hence he's going to make a movie like Godzilla. Like, I just kept picturing this, seeing here's the stuff in the trailers for the walkers. The walkers are going to show up and we're going to cut away. Or here comes Darth Vader and we're going to cut away as soon as he shows up or something. And what was so amazing was he did, like, I was saying before this movie is like, the only way I'm going to like this movie is if Gareth Edwards sheds every bit of his originality and style to make this movie actually fun. And it turns out that's kind of exactly what he did.
Well, the good news for you is that he probably didn't make half of this. Tony Gilroy shot half of it.
We don't know. We don't know what his version was. It very well could have been that.
I'm almost on I think it actually is, and we'll never see it because Disney will never allow it. But I think he turned in this gritty, dark war movie, and Disney lost their friggin' minds, and then they went back and changed all this stuff. So
you guys are bringing up stuff like like Godzilla and Monsters, and to me it's there's another movie where it's kind of like where it's like you're gonna have like this big event going on in the background, and we're going to show you glimpses of it, but we're going to keep it character focused. And that would be Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. He did that, I think, masterfully, where it was like he just showed you just enough.
Masterfully? That movie sucks, man.
I love that movie. The first 2/3 of that movie are great. You can we'll review that.
Stay tuned.
Yes. When Tim Robbins in the basement. Okay, yeah, we can talk about that later. But I think the first 2/3 of that, especially that first third of that movie, is so emotionally draining. But I think it's well done with that. But I think like Gareth Edwards tried to kind of do that almost in like a different way, or in the same way, where it's like we're gonna have like this like really interesting stuff going on in the background where we're gonna keep it kind of character based. But he kind of did it he kind of failed at doing it. I mean, I agree with Kurt. I watched Godzilla once. I had trouble staying awake for that movie. And it's like, you sign up for a Godzilla movie. I mean, it's kind of like signing up for a Rocky movie. You know, it's like when you go watch Creed, if they like don't show you the boxing match at the end, you're going to be like, well, that's fucking bullshit, man. It's like, the whole entire point of this movie was to lead up to that freaking fight. And that's the whole thing with like Godzilla. It was like the entire point of this movie is to see Godzilla knock down some buildings, destroy some tanks, and, you know, go, you know, fist to fist with another monster. And they completely like avoided that. Yeah, that movie sucked. So,
well, I think before we get any further into into Rogue One, a Star Wars story, we should do a plot summary. So, Kurt, we've given this to you this time. You wrote this one up. Tell us, and for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, summarize what you saw in Rogue One.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely, like I gotta give a spoiler alert here. For whatever reason you haven't seen Rogue One, just because you know the ending of the story doesn't mean you know what happens in this movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop listening.
Kurt, my grandma's seen it. Everybody's seen it. No spoilers needed.
Sure. Okay, so here we go. The Empire has taken over the galaxy, and the Rebel Alliance is barely scraping by with her efforts to bring the Empire down. Jyn Erso is a petty criminal busted out of jail by the rebels. Her father, Galen Erso, is an Imperial weapons designer and has defected by trying to relay the plans of the latest weapon he's created for the Empire, the Death Star. Jyn is recruited by the rebels to track her father down with the help of rebel spy Cassian Andor and his reprogrammed Imperial droid K2SO. Together they fly to Jedha, an Imperial planet, to meet with a defecting Imperial pilot who is carrying Galen Erso's message. The pilot Bodhi is captured by a rebel extremist, Saw Gerrera. Above Jedha, the director of the Death Star, Krennic, and Grand Moff Tarkin test the Death Star on the planet. Back in the city, the rebels attack the stormtroopers patrolling in Jedha City. Jyn and Cassian fight them off with the help of two mercenaries, Chirrut, a blind martial artist with a strong belief in the Force, and his partner, Baze. The group is captured by Saw Gerrera's men, and Jyn is shown her father's message, but before she can hear the crucial details about the Death Star's weakness, the planet begins to implode after being hit by the Death Star, and our heroes are forced to escape. They fly to another planet where Galen is meant to be stationed. Cassian goes off on his own to recon, but was secretly given plans by the rebel leaders to assassinate Galen. But before he can get a chance to, rebel fighters swoop in and assault the base. Galen is killed by a rebel bomb and dies in Jyn's arms. The group flies back to the rebel base on Yavin 4, where Jyn tries to convince the Alliance to attack the Imperial stronghold where the Death Star plans are being stored. When the Alliance refuses, Cassian, Baze, and Chirrut volunteer, along with a handful of rebel soldiers, to attack the stronghold themselves. They sneak into the base on a stolen Imperial ship they give the call sign Rogue One to. The rebel fleet joins Jyn's group, and together they created enough of a distraction for Jyn and Cassian to retrieve the plans for the Death Star and transmit them to the rebel flagship in orbit. However, the entire crew of Rogue One is killed in the battle, and to cover up the incident, Tarkin fires the Death Star on the planet and wipes everything out. The rebels take the plans onto another ship and are boarded by Darth Vader. The data plans are finally handed off to Princess Leia as her ship escapes, and we know what happens after that.
That's a good way of summarizing it and going through what is a densely populated film. There's a lot of characters in here, and I guess we'll get into it from the start. I want to start where the film does. We don't get a crawl or any of that. We do get the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Which I liked.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. I mean, I'm glad they didn't do that because, to me, if you want to differentiate these films and have them be standalones, and we can talk about whether this one achieves that or not later on, but if you want them to be that, you got to do something different with them, yet still tie them to the universe, right? So you tie them with the blue, sentence with the ellipsis, and then boom, you're right into it, and we get that shot onto Jyn's planet, and I didn't know they were going to start here. I thought we were going to get all of this in flashback. When we do get a lot of flashbacks in this film, I don't think we've ever had that in a Star Wars film before, but we get them here, and I thought this was how this was going to go, but no, we get the whole opening of this is Krennic coming for Galen Erso and his wife and daughter there on the wet. It kind of looked like the wet planet in Interstellar for a minute. So I don't know where it was, but yeah, they throw us right into it. I mean, they waste no time getting into this thing.
Sound of Music, man. Sound of Music. It totally was. I mean, this was a lift from Sound of Music, if you guys have ever seen that.
I
would think more of The Searchers, maybe.
No, it is. I mean, you got the main character when he's meeting with the Nazis, and his family goes into hiding. I mean, it's completely it's an homage to that. I mean, without a doubt, it totally is, and it's a good scene. I mean, it almost kind of reminded me even of a little movie I don't think Kurt's ever seen. It's called Inglourious Bastards, where you had the Nazi guy come in there and kind of interrogate and trying to figure stuff out. Basically trying to get this guy into his side. I mean, totally. I mean, the beginning of the movie is an homage to many movies, in my opinion.
You're going to kill me, but you want to know the beginning movie I was thinking of? And I don't know why, because I haven't seen it in years, but the original Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan the Barbarian starts off almost the same way. I mean, you get the lead bad guy comes in, the mom stands up, she gets killed, the dad gets killed. I'm like, well, it kind of screws the protagonist from the beginning to be against this great evil person. And I mean, she's indirectly squaring off against him the entire film, and it has a showdown with him at the end. I mean, that's Conan.
It's a Disney cliche though too. I mean, Disney movies. I mean, what's the one thing they're always known for is with the hero journey is that the hero has to be orphaned or has to have a parent die. I mean, you can name probably 20 Disney movies that have the same beginning. From Bambi all the way up to even like The Lion King, where it's like, it's the character has to have tragedy for them to be able to come to the good side or to be able to set up a foe. Right. So it's very much like a Disney cliche in a way that this movie starts off with. But I found it like just very interesting is that with, all 7 of the Star Wars movies, they're very contained movies. You guys were talking about the opening crawl and how that was like, the kind of the big departure. But to me, the departure for me for this movie, compared to the other 7 would be how the original ones were all very much self-contained over a couple days. I mean, Empire Strikes Back is a movie that you could debate that with Luke's training and stuff. But for it to actually start off with a flashback was more jarring to me than actually missing the crawl, because we never seen that before. I mean, we've never had a flashback or basically a jump in time in a Star Wars movie before.
There's almost like a cold open to it. Yeah, it's very different. So I liked it though. I mean, again, I was intrigued by it, even if it was reminding me of where I'd seen this 1,000 other times. That's fine, because I still thought, well, okay, now we've introduced the character and we've given her all the motivation I think she should ever need to want to join the rebellion. The funny part of it is, or I guess the twist to that is, she's not a part of the rebellion. She's just a drifter loner. I guess she's whatever happened to Natalie Portman after Leon got killed in The Professional. I mean, that's kind of how I took her, right? Especially the way we get the Forrest Whitaker cameo there at the beginning where he looks in a barrel and there she is. So I'm like, okay, well, she's going to go live with him. And the fact that she's not still with him when we catch back up with her surprised me a little. I kind of thought he would be her Obi-Wan somewhere along the way.
Oh, thank God.
Which apparently that is deleted footage. Like earlier you were talking about, Force Awakens, you were going in cold, or this movie you were going in cold or whatever. You didn't see many trailers. But the thing about this movie is you can go in no matter what, you're going in cold, because the trailers for this movie, they're all good, but there's maybe there's like 2 lines from the trailers that are actually in the movie.
Yeah, they're trailers to a different movie. That's the thing.
I mean, yeah, definitely Forrest Whitaker is definitely the young Saw Gerrera with the shaved head, and clearly there were some scenes where we saw a lot of the young Saw Gerrera. That was actually one of the things that made it look really cool and interesting in some of those teaser trailers, and that's is not in the movie at all. Having said that, this is a movie that, while the trailers are misleading, I'm perfectly fine with what we got as the final result. It doesn't usually happen, but the trailers, they did cut. There's a lot of stuff in this trailers that is not in the movie.
I'm just gonna go on record right now. I know there's this big thing about studio interference and all this stuff. These people aren't dumb. I mean, when it comes to actually viewing movies and trying to fix what they think is wrong. I mean, these people, everybody always thinks these guys are just some rich, Scrooge McDucks that don't know anything. So when there was all this stuff about rewrites and everybody was freaking out, it's like, you know what? These people are all experts at what they do. Let's not Monday morning quarterback this before the game starts. So.
I think though, I agree with you, Nick. You're right. I think though too, you've got to remember that there are fans of franchises who have seen what studio interference can do to their films and their beloved films. And also any person that is a worshiper of Ridley Scott and has listened to him rant at all for the last 30 years of his career talks about how the studios never get his films right and you have to, buy the extra double.
Yeah. I've seen the other Blade Runner version. Shut up, Ridley. No, but I think I think the best films are made when there's compromises involved.
Well, it always has to be, right?
I think when you see something that's completely director, focused. I mean, look at something like the Hobbit movies. I can guarantee you that New Line, WB, whoever wasn't, MGM, all the studios involved in there kind of let Peter Jackson do his own thing. And I don't think those movies were better for it. I think sometimes there needs to be restrictions. There needs to be constructive criticism in the process. I know a lot of people are always like, let the creator create. Well, unfortunately, this is $100 million movie. That's not the case. But anyway, that's my little rant about that.
Well, no, and you're not wrong. Look, there's always going to be that kind of thing. But what Kurt and I are saying, I think, is that we're led to think we're going to see one thing based on the trailer,
but isn't that great though? Isn't that freaking great?
Well, I don't know though. I kind of wanted to see Forrest Whitaker. It is. I was interested in him.
I know, but not only that, but they actually have trailers for movies, and it didn't give anything really away. I mean, it was like this stuff was alternate takes or cut footage that we're never going to be able to see, but it wasn't what the movie that we saw. I mean, so many times people complain that it's like, oh, well, the trailer gave the whole damn movie away. Well, guess what? This movie didn't do that at all. I mean, there was 90% of the trailer was not in this movie. It set a tone. It set a feeling for it. And we went in there and we were completely shocked by what we saw when those scenes did not happen. I mean, we'll get into it later. There's a couple big ones that didn't happen here. But for me, I was like, man, that's freaking awesome. I hope that they do movies like this in the future because it's like enough giving away the entire movie with the trailer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like this is one of the few action movies I can recall where the coolest scene of the movie wasn't advertised in the movie whatsoever. Like it goes against the way advertising goes in movies. Like, like I love Mad Max Fury Road, but when you see the storm in the trailer and like they show the shot of the car flipping around, the storm blowing up, well, kind of ruins it for the movie. In this movie, there's so much that is like, no matter what you see in the trailers, you're going in fresh because they don't show it. Like I think of like, if this were any other movie advertised another way, you'd see the Darth Vader stuff all over the trailers. You'd see him switching on the lightsaber or something. But there were so many just surprises in this movie that made it such a fun movie and very just refreshing as far as action movies go in this last couple of years.
The thing that surprised me most about the film was how quickly the first act and the third act unfold. Like, I've already said they throw us right into this thing, and they don't waste a whole lot of time getting to the part where we're breaking Jen out of whatever, prison camp thing she's involved in. Like, we're getting down to the brass tacks of that really fast because we need her. We already know who she is, right? And since we know who she is, then the rebels know who she is. And so let's not mess around and try to figure out who can we turn and use. No, let's go get the daughter of the guy who's building the Death Stars out there in prison. Oh, hell yeah, go get her. I mean, it's kind of like the way The Rock doesn't waste any time getting to Sean Connery wisely. Let's just get to it.
Now, my question for you guys too. I mean, we'll get into it. I mean, it's like, okay, well, we have the flashback where she's a child and she gets rescued by Forrest Whitaker's character, Saul Goodman, and then it flashes forward then to where she's in a prison truck, prison convoy or whatever. How did the rebels know about her? That was the one part I watched in this movie, and then I was completely confused when they came in. They got her out.
I got the answer there. Guerrero was one of them before he got so far out that they couldn't, associate with him anymore or whatever. He was too extreme. So they obviously would have known who his compatriots were. I mean, the fact that he abandoned her when she was 16, that doesn't mean anything. There was all those other years of him being a part of the rebellion. I also am not totally convinced that some of that wasn't a ploy because he was drawing so much heat from the Empire that he kind of went off and did his own thing to keep them a little more underground, and that he maybe was feeding them information. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's somewhere on the cutting room floor.
But that still doesn't answer my question, though. I mean, she's in that prison thing, and then they go to rescue her.
Well,
okay, so A plus B equals C. Okay, A, she's in the truck. B, they go and get her. C, she's freed. How did B happen? Like, how did they know that they know that she was there at all? That's my question.
There's probably just a missing scene where there's a mission to track her down and find out, and they found her on this mining colony, whatever.
She is going by a fake name, I mean, at the time, which, I mean, and they revealed to her, I think Mon Mothma's the one that's, calls her out on that immediately. It's like, yeah, nice fake name. So, I mean, we're kind of led to believe here, and the fact that when we meet Cassian, our other lead here, if we'll talk about him real quick, Cassian Andor here, that the Rebels have some really good spies, and he's kind of he's playing a little bit of Daniel Craig, James Bond here. I mean, he gets information out of a guy and he wastes him in the friggin' sewer.
Yeah, he reminded me of, if you could take Han Solo and mix him with the Red Viper from Game of Thrones, that's the character.
Yeah, you know what? I got a Red Viper thing too. I was like, please, don't talk too much, just kill him.
Yeah.
So
and I love that though too, when he's like, has that guy and he's kind of interrogating him and like getting information, he just kills him.
Yeah, he just shoots him because he's got everything he wants out of him. Yeah.
And that is a total jab at George Lucas. I don't care what anybody says.
Really?
Dude, the good guy just killed the guy in cold blood. And that is Han Solo shoots first. That is.
It is. But I like the ruthlessness of it because, again, if this is a war movie and you know anything about war is full of all kinds of awful things you don't do in normal life. That's why it's not normal life. It's war. And that also means the dirty part of tradecraft. And sometimes this stuff happens, and it's not like we're unaware of that now. And I like the fact that he's got this edge to him. I mean, he has this whole speech later with Jen too about how, he's been doing this since he was 6 and he's seen all kinds of awful stuff and he's had to do all kinds of terrible, heinous things, for this rebellion. So don't tell him about what's right and wrong. And I think he has the best comeback too, because she pretty much tells him, whatever helps you sleep at night. And he's like, I don't have trouble with that or whatever. And I was like, I like that. I'm like, I like the fact that this guy's a cold bastard and it bothers him that he is, because he used to not be that way, but he is anyway. It's similar to that scene in Saving Private Ryan where Tom Hanks finally tells everybody when they're all losing their shit about something, what he did in his personal life, that he was a school teacher or whatever, and it just blows all their minds because he's such a badass warrior. And they're like, you taught English, it's those kind of people that make up fighting forces, and that's what we get about this dude too. I dug him as a character, and we're kind of spinning off of what the initial thing was, is how did they find out where she is? I think it's because they got good spies. And he's just an example of how good they maybe are. And who's to say he's even the best one? That's the thing, is you don't Cassian maybe not even be their best one, but he's good. And so that's how I think they got it, Nick. I think they had good spies.
Yeah, he has a nice jacket though. I think Han Solo still is looking The Empire Strikes Back.
I think Poe Dameron got it in a hand-me-down store decades later. But yeah. That would be funny if, it was that. It just sort of kept passing its way through the underground markets of Star Wars. But anyway.
Who knew that Wilson Leathers was still a galactic influence in there?
Why not? No, I didn't have any problem with that. Again, I think, we know what they're going to do. This girl is obviously going to be part of this. So let's not screw around with watching her push the wheat around the cart a la Conan. I don't need to see her grow up. I can take all that in just quiet, quick exposition going by, because this movie's going to fly by anyway. And so I'm okay with that. I didn't have any problem with them breaking her out at this point.
No, not at all. I'm going to kind of go off on a little bit, though, what you're talking about, how you like this guy. I'm going to tell you this right now, and this is going to kind of maybe spoil a little bit what I'm going to get into. I really don't care for these two characters. Jin and, this other guy. I don't even know his name.
Cassian?
I know he's like the main guy.
Yeah.
What's it?
Cassian.
Cassian.
Yeah.
Cassian. It sounds like a type of oil. Yeah, they're just, I don't know. I mean, they never were endearing to me at all. I mean, I could see what they were going for with kind of the Han Solo mix with him and kind of the Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Carrie Fisher kind of all in one with Jin. And I can tell you this, I was never involved with these two characters. Now, the rest of the characters, we'll get into that. But these two, and I kind of find that as a failing for this movie, is that even with these beginning scenes with them breaking out, the only one in there that actually I was like, I like this character is K2SO.
That's because Alan Tudyk is a great comic. But go ahead, Kurt.
Well, I was going to say, I see what you're saying, and I've heard other people say that they didn't really like Jin and Cassian. And I don't know if I liked them either, but I acknowledge them as good characters. But it does it. They're not like traditional Star Wars characters where, you know, if there's a good guy in a Star Wars movie, if it's done well, they're just really likable people. But this movie is not a regular Star Wars movie, and I definitely got a war movie vibe with the whole movie, and those two characters specifically. Like, they're not very deep characters at all. They're just soldiers in this war.
But shouldn't they be? Shouldn't they be? I mean, I think Jay made like a very apt comparison one that actually went into this movie thinking was Saving Private Ryan. And I can tell you this right now is that every character, from even like Vin Diesel's character in the beginning all the way to like Tom Hanks, I was endeared with these guys. Like, just from the moment they were on screen, it was like, these are guys that I like. And then these two, it was like throughout the entire movie, I just didn't like them at all.
Well, I think there's a difference there, and I want to jump in on this, and I'll let you get back in on it, Kurt. But part of the thing that endears it in Saving Private Ryan is that's a real thing that actually happened to some of our grandfathers, and so we know those people. So there's that, okay? It's not weird alien worlds and shit like that. The second thing is, and I'm going to agree with you on this, though, Nick. These two characters are they're as two-dimensional as pieces of cardboard. All right. They are exactly what you see in front of. There's no depth to them at all. I would argue some of the supporting and side characters are the ones with all the depth here, the ones I'm interested in the backstory on way more. Like the blind ninja monk guy. Oh yeah, I want to know more about that dude, you know, and his partner. How did those two hook up? Because that's an odd couple if I ever saw one. I'm interested in those guys more than I am these. But what I'm saying is, for what they represent and what they are as as protagonists, I get it. I'm able to jump in with them because, again, they are so plain and easy to avatar onto that I can follow them. The thing that makes The Force Awakens really work, honestly, is the two leads in it, our young people there, are so charismatic and so fun to watch that you root for them. Well, it's hard to root for people in a movie where you know they're going to die. And I think the movie makers in this realize that, and they're like, we can't put too much behind these people, because if everybody starts to fall in love with Jen Erso and then she's friggin' vaporized at the end of this, well, that kind of sucks. You don't do that to an audience.
But wouldn't that make the movie better, though?
No, you make her relatable enough. I think this movie is built on the idea of what's just enough that we can do this so we can get to the next cool set piece. I mean, that's one critique I have about it, is that it moves really fast in some parts where I'd like it to tap the brakes, and then it friggin' slows to a crawl in times when I'm like, can we get on with this, please? I mean, there's a lot of the middle of this film that, well, I'll just tell you now, guys, the first time I saw it, I fell asleep. And I woke up at the end and I was like, did I see enough? You know, and then I actually went back and saw it again. I was like, oh, okay, well, now I know what I missed. But the truth was, I could have just snoozed through it again, and I didn't miss anything in the middle because I was, you know, again, I had already guessed the two twists. So I don't know. I don't have as big a problem with them. I accept them for being the pieces of cardboard that they are. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, though, with them dying at the end and it's stuff like that. But to me, it's like, if you make these people like so much more likable and relatable, the sacrifice at the end is going to mean so much more. I mean, Saving Private Ryan, for example, is, you know, when Tom Hanks dies at the end, it's heartbreaking. Not because it's, you know, it's a real thing, you know, or a real war. It's just because you really like the guy.
But it's two different goals, though, Nick. Those guys are trying to save the one guy, and they do, and it's revealed to be the old guy in the cemetery. So that's great in Saving Private Ryan. In this one, we know what these people are there to do. They're there to transmit that thing. They get that done, and we know that, you know, their ultimate mission is something so much bigger than them. So the fact that I don't get to know them that well I'm not going to ding the movie because I don't know them that well. I didn't need to. I didn't want to. Kurt, you've been trying to jump in between me and Nick arm wrestling over this for 5 minutes. So go ahead.
The floor is yours. Your floor is yours, Kurt. Go.
See, like I said before, it sounds like a negative to say it, but I found the lack of depth with the characters in a way refreshing, because unlike other Star Wars movies, this movie is not very concerned with, you know, deep characters or deep story, which might sound bad, but I consider this movie as like a spy movie or a war movie that's focused on this mission rather than a love story or a morality play like the other Star Wars movies. So I found the fact that I like the fact that the characters, they all just kind of got on with it for the most part. In fact, like one scene a lot of people complain about is Jin giving the speech to kind of trying to convince the rebels to join up, and the rebellions are built on hope. If anything, that kind of goes against what I liked about the character was that what was I just like that there wasn't that much depth. They were just cogs in this machine of the rebellion, because the rebellion as a whole, to me, that's the character sort of that I was really with. That's the character that sucked me in, was just these rebellions as a whole and their war, as opposed to individual characters within it.
Can I tell you the character I'm most interested in, though, in this film, by far, is Ben Mendelsohn's character, Director Krennic. This guy, I've become a fan of his by watching Bloodline on Netflix. I don't know if either of you have watched that or not. It's real slow burn drama,
big time,
very
big
good,
time,
but very good. And he's great in it. And he's fantastic in it. And so when he, I knew he was going to be in this, I was like, oh, okay, great, and I thought he just chewed the scenery up. Everything he was in, I loved this guy. He was everything I wanted a bureaucrat in the Empire to be, because he's also someone who has kind of topped out career-wise. Kurt, you and I are going to review a film next year of Kubrick's, and one of the ones we're going to do is Paths of Glory, and there's a character in there that I was sitting there watching this going like, holy cow, it's the same thing. It's the general. The mid-level general, and it's the same guy, and he's kind of hit a wall, and he's got this big plan, and he's trying to make this thing work. And I mean, holy cow, I can relate to the idea of having this huge thing that you've got to undertake and oversee, and it's just not working, and you're doing everything you can to make it work, and there are people above you who have no idea what it means to have to do this stuff, who are giving you crap about getting it done on time. And I'm like, man, I dug this guy. I really did. I was like, if there's ever been a sympathetic Empire character, it's this guy, because he's just trying to do his job, and everybody keeps giving him shit for it. I dug it.
Oh yeah, I really like this character, and specifically the way Ben Mendelsohn plays him. And Ben Mendelsohn is just one of the best character actors working right now. Every movie he's been in, he's never played the same guy twice. Look at him in Killing Them Softly, Dark Knight Rises, Place Beyond the Pines. 3 completely different characters, played completely different ways. And same here, totally different kind of character. And I love how you say he chewed the scenery. In my opinion, I think he played it very low key compared to what we've seen in other Star Wars movies, particularly. And I'll bring this up now, which is I think this movie exceeds The Force Awakens in pretty much every respect. And one of the biggest ones is with the villain. Not every villain, but the Krennic is so much better than whatever the guy was Domhnall Gleeson was playing in Force Awakens. I hated that character. Not in the way of like he's a villain and I hate him in that way. I hated the performance and the way he was played. He was so over the top, and the way he was giving these speeches just rang so false and cheesy.
He was a Nazi.
Exactly. He was a Nazi.
But Krennic was also a Nazi, but he was more
No. Krennic is middle management. I mean, I think I don't know much about Kurt's career and stuff like that, but I know me and Jay, we talk a lot about jobs and stuff like that. And I think just the political basis of any type of white collar office type job, this guy, he is playing middle management. And it's just and I'm going to say this about this actor is he's deliciously pathetic. And that's
a good way of saying it.
It is. I mean, in Bloodline, that's what he is. And it's just it's relatable because the flaws that he has as a character, you're sitting there and you're kind of slapping your head being gross spine, but you've been there. You've been that guy before. I mean, I deal with that in my job every day where it's me, I'm not management per se, but I'm such in the middle of where I am at my career that it's just you got people that are below you that look up to you and ask for your opinion, but then you got these upper management people that will sit there and they'll actually the success, the hard stuff that you work for, they'll come in the 11th hour and freaking take that from you to make themselves look better to the big CEO, or in this case be the emperor. And why I think that's why this character is great. I mean, he's completely different than Domhnall Gleeson's character in The Force Awakens because The Force Awakens, that the way it's not the Emperor anymore, it's the First Order or whatever they call it. To me, that's just like that's Nazism on just kind of like a broad sense, where this is like, basically like what our culture is, capitalism, and being like what happens when you're in the cycle, you're in the gears of what it's like to be in a capitalistic company.
Can I tell you why I think I like this character so much? And I'm just going to go on a little bit of a rant here, okay? And I may be completely wrong about this, but I feel like I'm watching a director secretly tell all of us this is what it was like to make this movie. And I am Krennic. I think this is Gareth Edwards. Is that he feels like he's got this huge thing in front of him, and he knows how to do it, and then there's all these larger entities above him telling him, no, you got to do it left and not right, and all of this. I feel like this is a little bit of what Christopher Nolan does sometimes with his movies, where he's one of the characters and you figure it out after watching it a few times. I think Krennic is so relatable because I think the director put a lot of himself in this thing. I know Gareth Edwards didn't have a big writing credit on this or anything like that, but I think he had a lot of influence on it. And I feel like this character is an avatar for what he went through making this film and the behind the scenes stuff of it. I mean, think about it. It's a perfect analogy for it. I mean, the large empire is, Disney, and you've got Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader, so Kathleen Kennedy and whoever else, I guess not Lucas, but you've got all of that hanging over you, and then you've got all these other people underneath you trying to undermine you and destroy it from below you. And so, I mean, I kind of feel like that's why I maybe related to him, because I did know that this was a production that had eventually been taken away from the original director and had been changed, and he went with it. But I mean, that's known. I mean, it's not like that was, I did not know that going into this. So the fact that I know it, I can't not know that and watch this performance and not see that. But beyond that, beyond the metaphorical part of it, I just like the fact that the guy is evil and he has no apologies for it. He doesn't care because he thinks his side is right. And that's the thing about the Empire that I always liked about the Grand Moff Tarkin character in A New Hope, is that he was totally convinced that he's right. It's not that he's a bad guy. He's doing what his, group wants to do. We're in control. We're going to stay in control, damn it. And if we have to blow planets up to do it, then so be it. I like the fact that he plays it the same way, that all these guys in the Empire, they're not conflicted. I mean, that's the thing we learn about Darth Vader, is that we're to believe ultimately that he's constantly tortured and convicted by this tug of war of the good and the bad inside of him, right? Well, the rest of the Empire isn't that way. I mean, for the most part, they're all pretty much like, yeah, no, we're the Empire. We're going to stay that way. And I like the fact that there was no hesitation on his part, except he should have shot the girl when he had a chance and not talked to her. But that's every villain's problem. Just ask John McClane. So,
well, not only that, but we go back to the flashback. Is one thing I think is very current, I guess, with the political landscape, is you got Mad Mikkelsen's character talking to him, and he's talking about like this weapon that they've made, and he's just like questioning. He's like, this thing's destruction. And you got, Krennic, where he's like, no, this is going to bring peace. And it's like, well, no, it's going to bring destruction. Well, if you have to do destruction to bring peace, that's what we'll do. And it's like, oh my God, that sounds like our new president coming into the thing.
Well, it also sounds like what Harry Truman had to say when he dropped the A-bomb on Japan. It's the same thing. I mean, it is. It's so political in that way. And I liked it, where it was just like, yes, this is the way politics are, where it's like, we're going to create this thing of mass destruction, but we're not going to use it. It's just there. I mean, the Death Star, I mean, it's always been an analogy for nuclear weapons. I mean, it always is. I mean, that's what it is. It's a big, gigantic nuclear weapon. And I like that they actually call it out in this movie, that it's like that the Empire, didn't necessarily create this thing to go around and just keep on blowing up planets. It's a deterrent. Well, that's what they say it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they do bring that up in A New Hope. It's to keep people in line. And I just think it's like, just stuff like that is why I love the old trilogy, especially the original Star Wars, and how like the prequels failed, where it was like they went off the wall with all their, political crap, where it was like the old trilogy and this one, they just keep it simple. You know what I mean? They keep it just like, yep, this is a nuclear bomb, but we're not planning on using it, but we will use it if we have to.
basically just to sum up on Krennic, that what I do like about him and the Empire as a whole in this movie is they are played real for the most part. They're played a little bit lower key, a little more grounded. And on that note, I want to say it's been ever since I saw this movie. Like as much I loved it, but I kept thinking I can't find a real great way to describe the certain tone of this movie. But the closest I can come to is, to me, it's like if you gave the Game of Thrones guys a Star Wars movie. This is the kind of movie they would make in terms of, as much as it's, the high fantasy and, it's a movie with Darth Vader in and so forth. It's treated with a certain level of reality and gravitas that it feels so much more real than Force Awakens. You guys talking about Krennic being a character who was, as much as he is an evil bastard, he is a little bit has more shades of gray in him than other characters we've seen in the Star Wars movies. Even though as evil as he is, but he's not like again, Tarkin isn't a guy who thinks he's evil. He's not the Emperor. He's not like they're just trying to control the galaxy and rule it. They're not out to kill people. Whereas in Force Awakens, General Domhnall Gleeson is definitely, his performance is, I'm a villain who knows he's a villain and is doing evil stuff, and they blow up 20 planets. And
I will also say though those are from two characters from different positions of power. Krennic's position is they're in control. Domhnall Gleeson's character, which we should probably look up the name of it since we're just naming it by him at this point. But I mean, that guy is from a position where they've been defeated and shattered and they're trying to restore things. So of course he's going to have a different tact than the way Krennic does. Look, it's like, if you're a fan of football at all, like the National Football League, right now, like the most evil person in the league is Bill Belichick because he's on top. Because he's been on top for so long, and his team is just a machine, and they just roll over people joylessly, for the most part and stuff. But back when they started that run, he was a guy getting a second chance at, being a coach and all this stuff. So they were kind of everybody wanted to root for the Patriots, and then they became the evil empire. You have a different attitude when you're on top than when you're looking up. And I think that's the difference in the two characters. And I'm with you. Because Mendelsohn plays it the way he does. When I said choose scenery, I think it's the fact that he does great performance and great lines and things like that for delivering lines about just ridiculous stuff. And this movie's ridiculous, okay? But to chew it up and do it the way he does is really good. Instead of playing it so big, I think it was a smart choice. And that makes him more relatable to us than the ranting Nazi that we just want to see die. I
don't think he raises his voice like even 2 times in this movie.
No, he didn't have to. That's the beautiful thing is he doesn't have to. And can I say too, the costuming in this film, I love the way he's done with that white cape. I mean, they do the dumbest thing in the beginning of this. He's in a spaceship and he lands 20 miles away from the place he wants to go, just so he can walk across the field. And I thought that was cool, but it's like, well, but that's to show that off. But I think that looks cool. And there's that thing in the trailer too where he's walking by all the dead bodies on the beach, and I'm like, I like the fact that his cape is just kind of flapping beneath him. I'm down with that.
That is such the Empire's motif though, dude, is they never land next to where they need to go. They love making an entrance. Okay, Empire Strikes Back, they land their walkers miles away. True. And they put them all next to each other and march in a straight line. I mean, they are old school British military. We're going to march in formation and march at you. This isn't guerrilla warfare with them. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, they are Nazis. I mean, they're stylish and they want to make an entrance.
This is true. You're right.
That's what they are.
Well, look at the way they fight. I mean, the way we get the fights in Jeddah. I mean, we're at that point now where they've convinced. And we would have to mull over the fact about what it takes to get Jen on board here or whatever. They land in Jeddah, and some great scenery looking stuff here too, man. When they're dealing with Saul and all that stuff, and she's with Cassian, and they're fighting it out with the stormtroopers in town there. I love it because, again, they're all in lines and they're getting killed by these guerrilla warriors. I mean, that's exactly how this works out. And so what's weird is, for me, as this American who's this super capitalist or whatever, to watch movies where I'm asked to now root for the guerrilla warrior. When my country has been at war with guerrilla warriors for, chunks of my life, from Vietnam to now the Middle East. And I'm going, well, this is a little awkward, but it's what we're asked to do here.
It does feel weird. I mean, it's almost like the reverse of Black Hawk Down. If you guys ever seen that movie where you got the people going through, Somalia, and you got, people that are basically got face masks on and stuff like that, basically waiting for the opportune time to attack them. And one thing I'm actually going to bring up that's kind of actually I thought was kind of funny was when I went to go see this house with, my entire family, meaning my parents, and my mom's not really a big Star Wars fan or really knows much about it. I think the only movie she's seen is The Force Awakens. And she actually in the beginning thought that the Empire was the good guys. I'm dead serious because we actually walked out of the movie and she was like, I was kind of confused in the beginning because I thought the guys in white were the good guys.
That's awesome.
And I think that's because of basically how it's framed. And exactly what you're saying is that you got this area that kind of looks like it's full of, filth and disgustingness. I mean, whatever the Obi-Wan expression for, in A New Hope when he's talking about
a hive of scum and villainy. Yeah,
exactly. And then you got these guys who they're dressed nice.
Well, okay. Can I say something about
and they're
that,
marching
though?
in formation.
Can I say something about that, though? That's punctuated by the fact that they have to shove in those two guys from the cantina scene in the middle of all this crap, which
terrible.
I was like, all of that crap. I'm like, that is all. Whoever's idea that was, that you should be fired. That's a bad idea.
That was a board. That was a boardroom decision where they're going over this, and they had someone sit there and go, "What about if we put them in there? People will like that."
Kurt, are you with us on this, or did you dig that kind of thing?
I totally dug that. And on that note, I want to say one of the things I was afraid this movie was going to be like Godzilla was, very serious. Like Godzilla was I'm okay with movies taking themselves seriously. I like Nolan's Batman movies, but there is a line of where it becomes so unpleasant that it's just you realize halfway through it, I'm not having fun in this movie. During the movie I paid to see, I paid my $13 to see. And that was something I was very concerned with this movie. A lot of people who don't like Star Wars were very excited for this movie because they thought, oh, thank God, we're going to get a super gritty, not like, it basically just sounded to me like they wanted a movie that wasn't fun, wasn't funny, barely had any action or whatever they was. They did not want a Star Wars movie.
Boy, they signed up for the wrong boat. Wow.
Yeah. And what I was pleasantly surprised with was how fun this movie was and how many Easter eggs there were for Star Wars fans. That one with the two guys is a little, that one is a bit much, but we're talking Easter eggs. I think my favorite Easter egg in this movie is the insertion of Grand Moff Tarkin in this movie is probably the most expensive Easter egg or fan moment in movie history. Because I want to say that was a big moment for me. And one of the most memorable parts of this movie was when we see him in a reflection. I thought for a second, maybe that was all we're going to see. And the CGI guys made a reflection. And then when he turned around and was talking, it was like, and they weren't cutting away. I was thinking, oh, hold on. Did they get a guy who looked like Peter Cushing, like what they did at the tail end of Revenge of the Sith? Because I thought it looked way too much like 1970s aged Peter Cushing. And after a few seconds, I realized, oh man, they did what I would hope they would do is that they remade Peter Cushing in CGI.
They mocapped and I, for one, think somebody that they had a Polar Express actor. I mean,
And I for one think this is truly one of the best single visual effects created in a movie. Seriously, I'd rank this with stuff like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, or even going back to stuff like Roger Rabbit as far as making a truly believable special effect. Because when I saw this movie, there was definitely a murmur in the crowd. Like one time, when I saw it with my dad, he literally turned to me and says, I thought that guy wasn't around anymore. The fact that for a split second anyone was thinking Peter Cushing was still alive, to me, is a testament to the effects work on that character.
I agree with you that the effect of that is so much better than I thought it was going to be, because I had heard they were going to put him in this and this is how they were doing this. And I thought, okay, now, I don't know about that. Let's see. So it looked way better. And the voice actor they got to do the voices did a great job with it. But I question the necessity of it, because I think you could have recast that with someone similar to him and what he did. And even if you ADR'd it and you did the voiceover on the other end, I don't know that it was necessary to spend the $20 million or whatever it costs to pull that off. Now, it's kind of neat that they did, and I think it's a total Star Wars fanboy serve moment, totally. But I don't know that it was necessary. I want the character there. I want to be clear about this. I love the character. I love what he does in this film. I think it's well done. But I don't know if it needed to be done that way. Why couldn't they just recast it with an actor?
Well, I salute Disney for doing it for the sake of like the realism and the timeline of the story, because like Rogue One takes place, let's say,
2 minutes before the fourth
exactly.
film. Yeah.
So and they do that and do this again later in the movie where they bring in a couple characters that were in A New Hope who realistically would be there. Like when we first meet Tarkin, he's on the Death Star. So like there's no he's not on Coruscant. He would be on the Death Star the whole time. And I think it's both. On one hand, it's like I want to ask Gareth Edwards, like, God, that was like why that's almost like a cruel thing to do to the crew, because like that the effects guys must have been going like seriously, like you want us to do that instead of you cast anyone. Like I was shocked that Ian McDiarmid is alive and well. You could have easily brought the Emperor back for that scene. Instead, they did something far more expensive and far more difficult, but was more true to like this idea of of this prequel to Episode 4, and I thought I loved it.
We don't need Ian McDiarmid, please. No, I think we've had enough of them after Episode 3. But I am going to come down on a different stance. I like that they included him. I think they included him in the wrong way. If you go back to the original trilogy, there was always a big thing about using holograms. Whether it was Vader talking to the guy from, Indiana Jones when he was piloting the AT-AT in Empire Strikes Back, to, the Vader talking to the Empire in Empire Strikes Back, when he's in his meditation chamber or whatever. I think they could have done it in a way like that. Now, do I think the special effect was great? No. Do I think it was bad? No. I come down in the middle. I was like, could I tell it was an effect? Yeah, of course I could. But was it a bad effect? No, it wasn't. I think they did a good job. And I think that in 10, 15 years, we're going to look back as, because I think this is going to be the future where death is not going to prevent an actor from being in movies anymore. I think it's going to be something where if the estate of that person wants them to be in a movie or whatever, that they'll be in it. And I think this is going to be something where this is going to be the first time that it was ever used prominently. I think we always used to look back at something like The Crow with Brandon Lee, but this one's going to actually be where they did a full character with a dead person.
I mean, that's the thing is this. It isn't like he's in one scene. This is a performance. I mean, he's also starring the ghost of Peter Cushing.
He's the heavy of the movie.
Yeah, no, exactly.
This isn't Princess Leia at the end where it's an Easter egg or a cameo. I mean, this is a full-fledged role. I mean, if this would have been an actor, he would have been like 8th or 9th build on the the casting sheet. Right. So this to me, this wasn't an Easter egg. This was a full-fledged role. Now, going back to it, I still think that they could have done something a little bit more creative. Again, it's kind of like, you look at the movie Jaws, a movie that me and Jay will be doing in the future, 1970s classic Jaws. And I think the reason that movie works so well is because you couldn't see the shark for the majority of the movie. They had to do creative compromises to be able to include it. And I think that because this movie has, $200 million budget, whatever the hell it is, that basically it was like, you can have your cake and eat it too here, where I think if they would have had a little bit more restraint, I think it would have been better. I think it would have been better to have him on a hologram, maybe done stuff where you see him from behind, you see his reflection on the mirror, as opposed to putting him full front and center, because that's the problem is the effect is not perfect. I mean, it's not. We all know that it was a CGI character, and the fact that we all know that that actor's dead, it just reinforces that fact that you're looking at this guy, trying to figure out how they did this, and it just makes the effect that much more obvious.
Can I say this, though, honestly? Like, I knew this was going to be an effect, and the first time he popped up, I was like, oh, that's an effect. I was like, oh, that's well done. And honestly, because he's so big in the film, and like Kurt said, he's the heavy of the film, as it wore on, I actually caught myself forgetting that I was watching something that had been created on a Macintosh
Same
or
here.
whatever. Like, I actually got lost in the fact that I'm like, man, holy cow, that's a really good Peter Cushing impersonation they're doing.
But the fact though that you said though effect and Peter Cushing impersonation shows that it wasn't flawless.
No, and
Well,
I'm not saying it was flawless. I just am saying it was good enough that I got lost in the fact that it was just an effect.
Yeah, and I think by the time like his second or third like scene came on, I was used to what it looked like, but I still think that by doing this and the fact that it's not perfect is going to draw criticism upon the fact that they did this.
Well, see, I think it's even better than you guys are saying. I honestly think there's no way to prove this, but I think if you just time traveled Peter Cushing from 1976 or whenever they filmed A New Hope and brought him into this movie and lit him and shot him like a 2016 movie, I think this is what he would look like. And in that respect is why I think it's as close to flawless as CGI can get, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I guess, we'll kind of go off a little bit here, but the ethical backings behind that. I mean, we did bring up in the beginning of the podcast that Carrie Fisher unfortunately has left us. And, with the new Star Wars movies coming up, if they would do this with her in episode 9,
I doubt it.
But the precedent's already been set.
But like one thing that it makes it a little easier on the effects guys is Tarkin really just stands around on the Death Star. I don't think I'd be stunned if they actually tried to give Leia a proper role in episode 9 anymore with this tech. I think that'd be if they did. I'd have to see it I'd have to see that to believe it.
But again, we're not talking about a movie that's coming out this year. We're talking a movie that's coming out in 3 years.
Yeah. Time's
going to have passed already. And let's say that they use that in episode 9 to give her a proper farewell. The ethical consequences of doing that. I mean, I guess that's just kind of what I'm gauging from you guys. It is a side note, but it kind of goes back to this with Tarkin is like, do you feel though that this is like ethical in a way that they actually are doing this?
I think even he said, like, Alec Guinness hated his experience making Star Wars. Apparently, Peter Cushing could not have had more fun and said he said he loved it. He said his only regret is that they killed him off and couldn't be in further movies. And reading that quote is why I see no ethical dilemma. I think, like, until we all die and ask him, hey, so what'd you think about your performance in Rogue One? That's the only time we're really going to get like a final word on that. But I don't think this is like, it's not like they had him do anything, against the character or something Peter Cushing wouldn't do. It's like, so I think it's, I think it's perfectly ethical.
Okay. Well, as long as he doesn't have a shower scene, it's cool.
Okay, let's not talk about that. All right, so getting back to the film here, though, guys, we're at we meet some of our secondary characters here that we really need to talk about. Some of these guys, okay? We talked a little bit about Jyn and Cassian, and I've mentioned that I like the K2 character as a good comic relief and things like that. But I'm going to be honest with you, it's Chirrut and Baze. Those guys are fun. Like, you have the blind monk force worshiper who, is everything you think in the Shaolin monk tradition of Jedis, right? Like, if the Jedi were still around, he would be one, even though he's blind, because he can kill people with that stick. And then you've got, like, his machine gun toting friend, and they just go around killing people. I mean, Nick, you talked about a minute ago, you and I were reviewing Jaws. We're also going to review Jaws 3, and there's two guys in that film that are kind of the same way. Fitzroy and his cameraman.
You did not just do that.
Well, these are done better. So, but no, but I got to tell you, these guys, I love the fact that, like, we meet Chirrut, and he's like, he's sitting there and Jyn is playing with this Kyber crystal on her neck, right? Because what we find out is that the Empire is mining the Kyber out of all these different planets because that's what powers the Death Star's laser. And if you know anything about, EU stuff in Star Wars movies, that's what powers Jedi's lightsabers. And so the idea of the Death Star laser being like a big ass lightsaber, I'm down for that. Like, I get it. And that they would have to mine something and destroy something to make it work. Yeah, I'm cool with that. And she's rubbing it, and he's so in with the Force that he's like, you give me that necklace, I'll tell you a lot more about you. And he's like this little fortune teller guy. And I'm like, I love that. I love the fact that this guy's sort of I don't know, he's just wasting his time there on Planet Nowhere, waiting for something to happen. But clearly can handle himself. And I just dug the dude. I don't know. I know it's cheesy and some of his performance is a little much. Like when later on he takes up the staff and he starts chanting and, walks across the bullets and he doesn't get shot and all that crap. I'm like, okay, well, whatever, but
no, that stuff's great. But I do want to just really quick interject was that Gareth Edwards actually just did an interview. The Kyber crystal that Jyn was wearing. He actually confirmed that her mother was a Jedi.
That's interesting. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now. So,
and I guess you
could probably put up a backstory there is that maybe he fell in love with her and stuff like that. And it's actually even more interesting when you think about like Jedi not having kids and that, maybe she's an offspring of a Jedi, which is, kind of puts her on the same level as someone like Luke or Leia or something like that. But just something I just kind of wanted to bring up. Really doesn't mean anything to the review, but something I thought was cool.
That is interesting to know. Yeah, it's a good note. So.
But I love those two characters. They are my favorite characters in the movie. Like at a point, like it's very adds to the sadness of the movie. It's like if you asked me what would if they did make a sequel to this movie, it's like right away I want the adventures of Chirrut and Baze. I want to see these guys like where did Baze get that gun? Why is he carrying it around? What does this guy do in his day job? But I love those two characters. And the only thing I don't like about Chirrut is I think they missed an opportunity. I'm not sure why they didn't just go all the way and make him like a blind Jedi and give him a lightsaber. Because especially like it's Donnie Yen, who is one of the greatest martial artists in the history of certainly film. I would love to see what this guy would do with a lightsaber because you see what he does with the staff. It's like I'm almost like shocked. Like there's so many fan moments. They didn't go all the way in that respect because clearly if you gave him a lightsaber, he'd know what to do with it.
I thank you, Disney and Gareth, for not making him a Jedi. I think it's so much cooler that he's not. That he's obviously Force sensitive in a way, but he's not a fully trained Jedi. I think that was such a genius move to have someone that is like so close to it, but not all the way. I mean, that's why we like Luke in the first one was that he had these abilities, but he wasn't there yet. And I think it was just so cool that he wasn't like that. And actually, and Jay's going to think I'm nuts here, I think that, these two characters, I think they were a little bit more than friends. I really do. I think.
I don't think you're nuts at all. I think that's totally there. I just wasn't.
And I think that was a way of Disney kind of gauging that stuff on here as far as audience reaction is. These two, I think, were basically, boyfriend and boyfriend here. And actually, you know what? I love their characters. These two right here. If I could have a movie with them and K2SO, I would be just thrilled. I love these two characters so much. I think that him and just is like, I'm one with the Force is with me. Everything that he did, I thought was great. I loved his humor. The funniest part of the movie too was when they get captured and they're putting bags over everybody's head. And
it's like, really, I'm blind.
Like, yeah, guys, I'm blind. What am I going to do? It's just like, it's moments like that we're missing from the prequel series where it's just like, it's just obvious humor that just hits at the right time. And it was great.
I'm going to side with Nick too in this one, Kurt. I'm glad they didn't make him a Jedi with the lightsaber thing because it pays off something from A New Hope. And so much of this film is paying off a lot of that stuff that's going to come. But there's a great line before Vader force chokes somebody in a boardroom because he's bored, right? When the guy's going like, your devotion to that ancient religion, blah, blah, blah. In other words, like, this is crap nobody believes anymore. Well, there's still a couple dudes out there that do, and it's good to see somebody that does. Like, we've never seen anybody else besides Vader and Yoda who did. Like, even Obi-Wan doesn't, he's sort of the disgraced, priest or whatever, if you think of it. This guy is like a complete devotee to Force as a religion. And I liked that motif, that idea that, yeah, he would be on a planet that was the home of the Jedi when they were a thing, and we're going to see the final destruction of their temple and what their ruins and all that stuff in this moment here, and he's still going to go off on it's going to be his motive for the revenge here is that he's a devotee to it. So I liked that. I thought it was a nice touch. Again, Donnie Yen completely owns it because he's so good with that staff, and he just beats the crap out of all those guys in the stormtrooper uniforms. I mean, that's the thing too we see about stormtrooper uniforms. The sound design in this is amazing because it sounds like that's what a stick would sound like when they hit a bunch of plastic. You know, I mean, it was fun. It was almost like for a minute I was playing with my G.I. Joes again versus Star Wars, and the G.I. Joe got won that round. You know,
definitely, and even
Snake
the
Eyes.
fact about even him being a Jedi was that Lucas made a big mistake in the prequels, in my opinion, where he made the Jedi so overly powerful. I mean, these guys are flipping off, jumping off stuff. If he was a full-fledged Jedi, I think the audience who is already aware of the Star Wars would probably think, well, this guy should be leading. This guy could basically do this all on his own. He's a freaking Jedi. And I like the fact that they're showing that there's different levels between people. You know what I mean? As far as like, there's like, you got your normal people, you got the people that are kind of force sensitive, and then you got the people who have trained and become Jedi. There's no doubt that if this guy would go to like Dagobah for a couple of weeks with Yoda, that he would be Luke's level or something around that. But the fact is that he's got that talent. It just hasn't been honed yet. And I think that's just, it's adding another layer into this universe, which we have not gotten yet. And I think that's just fantastic.
Yeah. You talk about that layering and like, and yeah, we like that in A New Hope, and Vader's talking about like, you know, the Force is some hokey religion and so forth. That is one thing I love about this movie, and hopefully about the future spin-offs, is the Star Wars, the Star Wars saga, those 7 movies, those are about the people that change the galaxy, that are the center of the galaxy, that changed the entire universe. The spin-offs, this movie specifically, is just about the people who live in the universe. Like this movie is all about the aftermath of like all that stuff that was just, you know, a couple people in some rooms in Revenge of the Sith that took over the galaxy. What we're seeing in Rogue One is the aftermath of that. Like when, like all like the, you know, all the rebels, like what is it? Cassian talking about, I've been in this since I was 6. You know, the one people who've lost someone. It's like the aftermath of the Empire taking over the galaxies. There's so many families that have been destroyed, and I love the way the Jedi are thought of. Like the Emperor is definitely taking some glee in that. Like that is how the Jedi are thought of now. They're extinct. That, you know, I love when Bay says, "There's no Jedi here." It's like, you know, it's such a like. The defeat of the Jedi, it adds a certain level of sadness. If you've seen all the movies, it's like, man, they used to like be the protectors of the universe, and now half the people don't even, you know, believe them, like Han Solo does.
Yeah, well, and because they were the stupidest protectors of the universe, they're no longer in control because we've seen the prequels. But no, I like the fact that we introduce these people here, though. They get along for the ride. We're going to talk about K2. I want to talk about him and his big scene later on when he's holding off the forces and stuff, because I think that's the best way to get into him. But we got to move the story along here. We know that Cassian has been given orders to go kill Galen Erso, and Jyn knows where, you know, he's going to be, and she's like, we're going to go get him, and he's going to be the one that tells everybody this great secret and stuff. I'm not going to, you know, have to deliver a message. He's going to deliver it himself because I'm going to save my father, yada yada. And they go on this great thing, and this is where the movie, I'm starting to go, can we get on with a little bit? Because I feel like this drags just a little bit long. Like we do the Armageddon crash on the, you know, miles away from where they need to be, and then we send the 2 guys out, one to be the, you know, the lookout, and one to be the sniper here, and the lookout doesn't know that the sniper's there. And the whole time, Jen's like, I'm not going out there alone. So she goes off. It's like everybody slowly but surely peels out of that ship except the droid, because he's like, y'all are crazy to go out in the rain against that. And I want to say, this is a cool looking set. Like, I love the little landing bay in the side of the mountain and all this stuff. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is... I'm from the South, so I know Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where we did a lot of uranium testing for the nuclear bomb. And if you've ever been to Oak Ridge, it's like this secluded place in the mountains. It's like this. And I'm like, yeah, I could see a Death Star being built in a place like this, or the design for it being built here. I get it. And I just liked it. I like the fact that all of it happens. And I like the showdown, too, between Krennic and Galen, because Galen just tells him straight up, no, I'm the guy, I'm the mole. You don't have to kill these, you know, other scientists that I've duped into this. And he's like, shoot him anyway. And they shoot him down. And I'm like, holy shit, this is when the movie, I'm like, man, this is dark. I'm like, I'm surprised they let this keep going, because I was digging it, though. I got back into the movie at that point, because you've also got the ticking clock of the rebels are sending in the bombing squad, and it's like, you're about to be killed by friendly fire. And I'm like, this is going to be a problem for everybody. And I don't know, I dug it. It got the movie get back going for me, because it slowed down at that point.
I see what you're saying. Like, the mission to kill Galen and casting doesn't do it. What I like that aspect of the story, again playing into this war movie aspect, is I like the idea that the rebels aren't above being evil bastards when they want to be, if they think it's a means to their end. I like that in terms of that level of gray. Again, like we see that in Game of Thrones. Not everyone who in the North is a good guy. Not everyone in the rebels is a nice guy. Like the guy who orders Cassian to kill him. He does it behind Mon Mothma's back. He doesn't even have a really good reason as to why. But I just love the idea that there's good and evil on both sides part of it. And I love how Galen is killed by one of the rebel ships and not a TIE fighter, which, I mean, I saw Galen dying, but I didn't see him dying like that, killed by his own guy, killed by the good guys.
Well, I like the fact, though, that he's a casualty of, even though he's doing the right thing or whatever, he is responsible for this. And so he pays the consequence for it. But he gets the moment to tell his daughter what she needs to know, which is, again, the news we've all known, and that I had guessed. And I'm not saying I'm some Nostradamus because I guessed that. I was like, well, look, that makes total sense. I'm like, you're going to tie this crap up. That's a great way to do it. It's like, if you coerce me into building your evil war machine, well, screw you. I'm going to give the plans to blow it up to my daughter. So I like it. I mean, I'm down for that. I mean, I thought it was a well placed piece. I like the fact, though, that we do get what I would normally consider like the ultimate cheesy moment with him dying in his daughter's arms and all that. I was like, we're going to do that again.
See, that was a Star Wars scene.
Yes, but you know what? They didn't play it too long. Like, I was actually happy with the fact that they got on with that quicker than I thought they would. And I don't know if some of it was cut or whatever, but they moved that along quite well, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, you watch the scene. I mean, before, we kind of skipped over in Jeddah when, the planet was blown up and everything like that. And Saul Goodman was killed and everything was.
You mean Che Guevara?
Yeah,
Che Guevara?
Yeah. But there was a transmission that Jane saw where it was her father, and he had talked about that he basically had designed, or he put when they were building the weapon in the Death Star, was that he built a flaw into it purposely. But there was also something else that he did, was that even though he knew he wasn't integral to actually building it, he made Krennic actually believe that he was basically the most important man to make sure that this spaceship would be operational and continue to be operational. So when we get to the scene in the rain, one thing that I really liked in there was when they were trying to basically, interrogate, like, who's the one giving up this information, was even after Mads Mikkelsen's character admitted that it was him, they still killed his engineers and let him live, because he had played this long game where it was, they need me. No matter what I do, they still need me. And I thought that was a great character trait. But of course, the rebels come in and they bomb the thing and they ended up killing him. And it was like, man, you guys probably could have still needed him. You know what I mean? If you guys would have just held off a little bit or whatever, they could have took him back and, maybe done something a little bit different or, whatever. But it was just like, the whole thing is I liked is that it showed, like Kurt was saying, it showed the flaws in both sides, and showing, it's very true to life, is that sometimes the good guys, or what we perceive to be the good guys, do bad things in the name of good. So just, I think it was a good scene, but I also was kind of feeling you, Jay, as far as I was kind of getting bored up until this was going on. And it was just kind of like, oh, we're just going to bounce from planet to planet, aren't we? It just kind of felt like kind of the worst parts of the prequels, where it was just like, we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here. But luckily, after this scene, this is where it really starts to kind of get going with them getting a little bit of information, and then going back to the bureaucracy of the freaking rebels. My God, it's like the UN.
Well, we got a pretty big scene right before we get back to the rebels, which is a scene I kind of wish wasn't in the trailers, because I think when you say it's Star Wars, I think everyone's seen this movie anyway. But I'll tell you what scene I was looking forward to the most is when you just see a quick flash of Darth Vader in that trailer. Mm-hmm. And so the scene I was looking forward to was this. And when we see that shuttle fly in on the volcanic planet, instantly, even though they weren't playing the Empire theme, it's like, oh, I know what this is. And I saw it on the opening Thursday night. It was definitely all only people there were Star Wars fans, guys above 25 that were hardcore Star Wars fans, and there was an audible reaction when they saw the volcano planet because they knew immediately, oh, we know what this is.
Is that Mustafar?
Yeah,
See,
I think it is.
I think it is.
Yeah,
and I thought it was awesome, but also kind of sad that that's where Darth Vader, Anakin, chooses to hang his cape up because it's technically it's a place where he was reborn, whatever you want to call it, but. The fact that he's not on Coruscant, he's not in space, he chooses a volcanic hellhole, and there's something really sad and dark about it. And I'll tell you my favorite part about it is not the scene where Darth Vader's choking him and walking around. It's this quick scene where Vader's guy alerts him that Krennic's here, and we see him in this tank, like the tank Luke was in Empire after he gets mauled by the Wampa, and we see the water level lowering down, and we get this very small but so creepy and menacing look of Vader from like the eyes up, where we see like the back of his scarred head, and there's like and the burned white skin. I just thought this movie, even if that was the only scene, I thought what this movie did so well was they made Darth Vader scary again. And this scene, and of course, the big one next, is for some reason this is the first time in any scene with Darth Vader I just picture the guy behind the mask so much. I saw the burned face. I just picture this grizzled evil bastard in his 50s. Like this is the Darth Vader before he knows he has kids. This is the Darth Vader who has nothing left to live for except do what the Emperor says. He's his hound dog. And I think he's the scariest he's been since Empire Strikes Back. And James Earl Jones doing the voice. I was kind of concerned because I knew James Earl Jones was going to come back. And it's like I thought, maybe he's kind of getting old, but older James Earl Jones gets, the cooler his Darth Vader voice sounds, and he just sounded more badass than ever.
I have a feeling that somewhere in the annals of Lucasfilm, they've got like a sound bank of James Earl Jones, kind of like they have in the Stepford Wives, of like every word in the world. So when he does go, that they're like, well, we got no problem with that. I mean, because they pretty well got it all right there. No, it is a good performance. I want to say this, though. It felt a little fan servicey to me that like, we're going to have to see Darth Vader burnt the F up again and all that stuff. But I forgave it because of the Mustafar location. I said, no, I totally get why he would choose this, because if you're going to be this person that we ultimately know is struggling with the good and the evil inside of him, even though we would have never known that until Luke reveals it to us in Return of the Jedi. But he's struggling with that constantly. The only way you could remind yourself to go to the dark side, to give in to hate and fear and anger, would be on a place where your best friend chopped off all your limbs and left you to burn to death on the side of a volcano. I mean, yeah, that might piss you off every day if you woke up and saw that. I mean, it's an awful thing, but it's also perfect for the character. And I thought, that's smart. I don't know if that's in any of the EU or not or whatever, but that's a good choice. And it is okay. So I was down for that. I thought that makes total sense. I mean, I get it. And the thing though that kills it for me though, man, is he comes out and he has this whole thing with Krennic, and I'm fine with it up until the end, and he's force choking him, and I'm like, that's awesome, yes, and then just like let him go, and he has to drop that stupid pun, and I'm like, what are you, Buffy the Vampire Slayer all of a sudden? It's like Vader does not drop one-liners on people. He doesn't scream to the heavens
Vader
either.
Does do. Vader is a one-liner guy, though.
Rest in peace, Captain. What does he say? Apology accepted, Captain Nito.
He does.
But he is a... That is not the same as don't let your ambitions choke you. I mean, come on. Y'all got to admit that's bad. Y'all got to admit that's bad. Like, that's a bad line.
It's not good. I'll give you that. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's like the Tarkin effect. It's not good, but it's not bad. So, but the one thing I took away from this scene, and maybe this is just my cynical nature towards the prequels, was most other of the planets kind of like a call out for what they were. Like right. Jeddah and stuff like that. Like it got a little subtitle declaring what planet it is. This one did not get that. And also,
I think it's because we're supposed to know this is where this is. I think they did that for places.
No, I think it's them kind of distancing themselves from the prequel, saying, yeah, we're recognizing it, but we're not going to call it out. And the same thing goes with Vader in the tank. Was they purposely do not show his face because it's like Hayden Christensen.
I was worried they were going to do that.
Yeah, we're just going to kind of we're going to hint at it, but we're not going to completely tell you, just like the planet, which again, I think is just kind of like Disney's kind of, love-hate relationship with the prequel, so to speak. That's what I was kind of taken away. But one thing I do really like about that, though, was Krennic goes there and he's talking to Vader, and it's not about Vader, it's about the Emperor. And again, this is such like freaking just political nonsense at work.
Yeah.
Where it's like, can you go talk to the Emperor for me? It's like he's like I said, pathetically deliciously pathetic that he can't go talk to the Emperor himself, that he's trying to get like, the VP to go talk to the CEO. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I don't want to go do it myself because I'm not going to bug him with this. But if you could put a good word in for me, that would be nice.
Yeah.
You know
See,
what I mean?
Krennic.
Yeah, it makes me like Krennic more.
Jay, you've done that at work before, where it's like
I've not been force choked by my boss, thankfully.
Yeah, make sure the upper management does kind of know that I did this. You know what I mean?
Oh, no doubt. When somebody tells me, "Hey, thanks a lot for doing this," I'm like, "Can you write that to my boss in a note?" Like, I've totally done that. I will admit that. Yes,
and that's what this was, and that's why I like that. But of course, Vader kind of knows what he's doing, and he's like, don't bite off more than you can chew here, buddy.
It's like Krennic's trying to be Vader Jr. or something. Like I always thought, like the cape, Krennic definitely saw Darth Vader on a ship somewhere and said, "Oh, I want a cape too." And he tries to talk to Vader as though they should have put a line in there like where he says, and we're on the same level here. We're both middle management for the Empire here, aren't we, Vader? And Vader, he just turns around and force chokes him as he walks away, and he's reminding him who's really in charge of this galaxy, and there's only two people, and that's the Emperor and Vader. And it's a weird thing. Vader's placement in this movie is like, it's so strange how, like I was saying, the movie's very not dramatic and it's a little bit low key. And yet the most dramatic, he can't get more dramatic than Darth Vader. We know this guy inside and out. And, I can't think of another movie that's done that, where a character shows up and like, him so much more than all these other characters. Like Suicide Squad did that when Batman showed up. I thought, well, I know who the best character is in this movie. He's only in it for 30 seconds. And that's how I thought of with Rogue One. It was just, I can't think of another movie that's done that.
Can I tell y'all, though, I didn't know we were going to get more Vader. I didn't know the ending was coming. I hadn't heard that before I saw this. And so I thought, okay, wow, this is really interesting. I'm curious to see, is this all we're going to get of Vader? And if it had been, I'd have been fine with it, honestly. I'd have been like, okay, yeah, I'm down with the fact that we've established this. Because, again, it made the Krennic character more of what I liked about him. It's like, this guy is so screwed in his job. And, I just feel for the guy, and I get his point of view here. And it's neat to see Vader putting people in their place, because if there's anything that the original trilogy was all about, was letting us know that Darth Vader had no problem putting a bitch in its place.
Kind of like Lando in a way, where it's like, hey, wait, I'm changing the deal here. You know what I mean? Where it's like, dude, you're not as big as you think you are. Hold off what you're doing here a little bit. But one thing I also do want to bring up about Krennic, though, is one thing I really like was an aesthetic choice in here, was when we see Vader the first time in A New Hope, you got this guy all in black, and then you got his troops that are all in white. But Krennic is the exact opposite. He's all in white, but his troops are all in black. I thought that was kind of a cool little
nice.
reverse. Yeah.
But again, like you say, they like to make an entrance, so I just think that's part of his entourage now. So
yeah, you got to be contrast. Like if you're an Oreo cookie, you're going to be vanilla with chocolate Oreo cookie.
I did think that was smart, though. Again, I was down for this scene, and it's good because now we do have to get back to, and this is where I feel like the film really drags some more. I'm like, we know these people are going to go steal the plans, okay? And this is the funniest thing to me. I think you've hit it out of the park, Nick. And now having you having said that, I appreciate the scene more. But the whole bit where Jen is trying to convince these people, one, she really worked up a speech for this pretty fast, so I'm impressed by that. And secondly, she's giving this impassioned rebel speech, and I'm like, lady, you haven't been doing this for 3 days. But okay, whatever, movie. And then they're all like, oh, we can't do this. Oh, we can't do this. And I'm going, have none of you, do y'all not have tapes of the old Senate hearings where you overthrew Malcolm McDowell or whatever? Or Terrence Stamp? Can we go watch that again? Because that's what got you where you are. Just they haven't learned anything. And I thought, I don't know. I felt like, well, this shows us that you've got to have people willing to push buttons behind the scenes and do things to keep things moving forward. And I was reminded of a couple of World War II stories. And just to digress for a second on this, a lot of people will tell you that the war in Europe was really won in Africa by Patton and some of his guys that were chasing Rommel, another tank commander in North Africa, because Patton refused orders to just, follow and search and back off. He just kept going after him and going after him and going after him and engaging in battle until they finally won. And I'm reminded of that because in history, you've got to have people who are willing to go, well, you guys don't think this is the right thing to do, but I know it's right, so we're going to go do it anyway, and they go do it. And that's exactly what Jen and her compatriots are here. But I'm watching this whole thing, and I'm like, can we just get to the part where she walks out of there and is like, well, that was a complete waste of time. Like, I didn't need to see her waste the time doing it. I could have just bought it if she walked out going, like, they didn't buy that at all, because Cassian pays all that off for us. He's like, I told you they were going to believe you. And I'm like, well, actually, you didn't. That must be on the cutting room floor somewhere. But I'm glad that you said that, because he shows up with a bunch of his double O's basically, who are like, look, we've done some pretty heinous shit for this rebellion and we're ready to see this end. So what do you need? And then they go and do the thing. That to me felt unnecessary to have all this bickering back and forth between, oh, we should do this. No, we can't. We just can't trust it now. All that crap. I didn't need that at all, because it makes me realize that the people running the rebellion aren't that different than the Empire in a lot of ways. Maybe that's the point too, but I didn't dig that. I was kind of done with all that way before they did it.
I like the message of that scene. The delivery is a bit cheesy, but I do like the whole point. Is like she's reminding them, isn't this the whole point, that we are, one against a million, that we're supposed to, go up against the odds. I like the idea that they are trying to remind them of that. Like, we are the resistance here. We're, of course, we don't have good odds. That's the whole point of a rebellion. But the delivery is a little bit cheesy. I'm also confused as to why Admiral Akbar is not in that scene. They got a replacement for Admiral Akbar, who's another calamari guy, and I kept waiting for, of all characters that don't show up that should have. I was really surprised Akbar didn't show up.
But, why wasn't he? Why wasn't that him, by the way? Like that, I mean, if we're going to do all this payoff anyway, all this fan service, why the hell is he not in this? Why do we have this new random goo?
Well,
by the way, the CGI on that looks like crap.
We had the George Lucas version of him in there with the big giant jaws. I mean, it's, but it's the same thing as like Red 5 going down. I mean, the guy that they had in there, Raditz or whatever his name is, it's the precursor to him. But speaking of, kind of like that council meeting, I kind of liked it in a way, because it just reminded me of politics, the way it is today, where it's like, even like, stuff with like World War II was like, no one wanted to get involved. It's just like, no, shouldn't do this. You know what I mean? It's like, let's, it's kind of like, I liked how some of them are like, maybe if we go apologize, they'll forgive us and kind of let us back in the fold.
Yeah, but unlike World War II, there's Mon Mothma's not back there like, well, let them destroy this one base and that'll get everybody online. Like, that doesn't happen. So, I mean, it's not exactly that. It's more modern politics, like you're saying. So
it is. But would you have liked, though, if she would have gave like a rousing speech and also they all would have started clapping, and then they all like,
no, that would have been bad. But that's what I'm saying, is this is unnecessary. Like, they should get back and go like, I'm sorry your father died, we're gonna have to come up with another way of doing this. And she gets back in the hangar like pissed about that, and Cassian's like, hey, I got some other spy buddies here who are ready to go do some shit, so you down? And like, they just go and do, because that's what they do. I mean, they have the defected Imperial. We haven't talked about that guy at all, but they have the pilot, and they've got all the stuff they need to go pull this off. And I mean, she has a great line. She's like, they're never going to see us coming. They don't expect us. We have the complete element of surprise. They have no idea that we're crazy enough to do this shit. And I like that. I didn't need the boring committee bit to let me know that the rebels weren't down for this kind of thing. They would just take advantage of a good opportunity, and this is one of them. I would have been better if they just gotten to the invasion, because I'll say right now, the best part of this film is the third act, when it goes all balls to the wall and all hell breaks loose on Scarif. That is the best part of this film, because it never stops. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, like the whole movie up to this point, in my opinion, was very good, and the action scenes we did get were good in the whole story. But yeah, the final act I thought was shockingly thrilling. I knew it was going to be like some cool stuff, but I was not expecting it to be as heart pounding as it was. I had no idea. I had no idea there was going to be any kind of space battles whatsoever. That's one thing I'm glad they didn't put in any trailer I saw. I didn't know we are going to have anyone fighting in space, and we get the best space battle we've had since that great one at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Oh no, absolutely! Look, the fact that those two Star Destroyers crash into each other and it crashes the planet.
That's insane.
I loved that. I mean, yeah, and we have the whole shield to take down again. I'm like, yeah, we gotta have two things going on. We got the ground war, and we got what I wanted Return of the Jedi to be, which was the ground war was the boring part of that to me. Yeah. I never liked it because I felt like they wasted two good characters with Leia and Han down there doing that. With the space battle and then what goes on with Luke and the Emperor and Darth Vader on the Death Star is so much more compelling, and that's what saves that film in the third act. Is those two parts are better than that one. But in this one, both parts are good. You've got a great space battle going, and you've got a great ground battle going. And I love how they have great tactics with this. They're like, look, we'll make, you do this, you blow that up over here, it'll make 10 seem like 2. And like everybody's got their little part in their little scene. You got the pilot back there trying to get the satellite to uplink still, and he radios in some bullshit to make them go to the wrong place. And I'm like, well, yeah, that I get it. That makes total sense, right? And they fall for it. And the other cool thing is that you've got Krennic up there who's there to inspect. Of course, everybody's freaking out because like, holy shit, like start looking busy, because he comes in, because this is what middle management does, is they push people around below them sometimes. And I like the way that he, comes in and does that, and he starts seeing all this stuff blow up and everybody's standing there and he's like, why are you looking at me? Why don't you go down there and handle that? I was down for that. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
You can't tell me you didn't like the third act of this.
I did, but the one thing New Hope, it's the one battle in space. Empire Strikes Back, it's what's going on with Vader and Luke, and then kind of what happens after that. Return of the Jedi kind of changed the Star Wars formula. We're going to do multiple battles at the same time and kind of just kind of intercutting between them. The Phantom Menace did it. Attack of the Clones kind of did it, was a little bit more kind of straightforward, linear with the thing. And then, of course, Revenge of the Sith did it just awful. But I'm not a big fan of just like cutting between it, because I think it just kind of lessens a lot of the dramatic tension between what's going on. I mean, I think the ground battle was great. I liked it when the AT-ATs come through. What it actually reminded me a lot of was basically the first climax of Return of the King with Lord of the Rings, when it was like one thing after another, and like, oh shit, here comes the elephants, just like, oh shit, here comes the AT-ATs. I mean, it was essentially that, but there was some kind of stuff in there where I was just kind of like, oh, all right. I mean, we got to give everybody something to do. I mean, we get the obvious, we get the cameos from the Gold Leader and Red Leader in there using unused footage from the first Star Wars to interject that into there. I don't think that was needed.
I disagree.
I don't think it was needed. I think it was just that's kind of fan service, almost like C-3PO and R2-D2, which opened up a giant plot hole, which I'll get to. But just stuff like that. And then like Riz has got to go and find basically a gigantic USB cord to be able to go plug it in. I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It was fine as far as that goes, but like I like the AT-AT stuff a lot. I like that stuff was really cool. I thought the stuff with using like jackhammer style spaceship to push the Star Destroyer into the other one, we kind of saw that in Empire Strikes Back, but like they did it like a lot more dramatically in this one, or with a bigger effect. But I don't know, it was good. It was good.
The thing that makes it work to me, I'm fine with the cutting back and forth again, because we're progressing along. Like you've got three things going on. You've got the ragtag group of Rogue One fighting it out with all these stormtroopers. All right, you've got the Rebel fleet taking on the Imperial fleet above that area, while the Death Star is looming around them. All right, and they're all freaking out about what the hell is that. And then you've got Jyn and Cassian in like the most dangerous library on earth. Like you could fall to your death to go get what you want out of it. But they're trying to retrieve the secret files, which are of course stored under the pet name that Dad had for or whatever. But that's fine. But you've got that going on, and Krennic shows up and starts shooting guys, including Cassian. Like I didn't think he was dead. I was like, no, he's not dead yet. But he gets shot and falls, and I'm like, well, that's now we've really upped the tension here before she goes and gets the CD-ROM to go and upload somewhere else. I love too, though, that by the way they actually have something here that like you never think about in Star Wars movies or in space movies, is that tech just seems to work. They actually have like upload and download times. It's like I gotta have a better connection or this is gonna take friggin' forever to upload. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like, I can't just instantly transfer the file. I thought that was kind of fun.
I was just kind of like wondering, I'm like, man, they got some kind of ancient kind of technology here. They got to go and pull the hard drive manually to be able to upload it. It's like, hey, man, today they just throw in a flash drive and be able to download that thing in about 30 seconds.
Well, that's essentially what they do at the end of it. They throw in a flash drive and copy it. I mean, by the end, I get that it's a library file. It's big. It's not saved properly. I don't know. I thought it was funny because, again, with all the technology you've got going on, and it still takes 30 seconds to download, your thing from iTunes or whatever. I catch myself sometimes going like, man, my internet is really slow. And I'm like, 5 years ago, I would have thought this was fantastic. So shut up. I mean, like that's, yeah.
They can travel at light speed, but they can't download.
But they can't download faster than LimeWire in 1998. Okay, whatever. So,
I thought it would have been better if they would have had they had to like push aside a bunch of AOL free hour discs or something.
Or if they had to like block pop-up windows, that'd have been great, right? Okay. The browser of some kind. So. Yeah. But we get the thing is though, is the K2 character who's been there pretty much for comic relief the whole time and basically just to be the smart-ass robot of the film gets his best scene here. Because he's like shooting stormtroopers left and right as they come in the door, getting shot himself, and he's sitting there. We've never seen a droid take up arms like this, other than in the Phantom Menace, and that don't count. So the fact that he's like willfully doing this, basically sacrificing himself for the team, is what we're going to see happen with almost everybody in this story. All of our group here, one way or another, is going to sacrifice themselves so that something else can be accomplished, right? And his was the one that really hit me, though. I mean, I was like, man, I didn't want to see that guy go. I liked him.
Oh, yeah. I got to, like, this is like, this whole part of the final act, the action is amazing, but the way the final act starts to wrap up is where this became one of my favorite movies of the year. Because, unlike your average Star Wars movie, characters start dying. And it was a gradual feeling, the way the third act was going. Because when K2SO got shut up, it looked like he was this invincible Terminator, so he's not going down, but eventually he goes down. And there was an audible reaction in the audience because I did not see, I saw Galen dying. I didn't really see him dying because, again, he was the comic relief. It would be like killing Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, wow, they really, seriously, they killed him off? Because at this point, I think when I'm watching the movie, I'm immediately assuming, Disney's going to wring as much as they can out of this. There's going to be a whole series of movies about the rebel soldiers. But when they killed him off, that's when that started to fade away in my head. It's like, I think they got something else in mind in here. And we move into, I can't remember what the order is, whether it's Bodhi or Chirrut who bites it first, but Bodhi is like he's trying to work on his mission, trying to transfer the files, and then very randomly a grenade just gets flung into the ship and blows up, and he's dead. And then
you know what? The way these guys start getting picked off, I felt like I was in the climax of Saving Private Ryan. To go back to that earlier in the discussion, is that I felt like with him, it was when Jackson got shot in the tower by the tank, not that guy.
Like seriously, it got into Game of Thrones territory where I started to panic almost a little bit because I'm not sure who's going to make it out of this.
I just want to say this, though. You guys keep bringing up Game of Thrones. There were not nearly enough topless women and blood in this film to be Game of Thrones, okay?
Yeah,
so if those guys had made this movie, you wouldn't be watching it with kids. I promise you that. So.
Yeah, but we got a vagina tentacle monster, though, earlier in the movie.
All right.
That was Prometheus. Anyway, go ahead.
But the thing, though, with I guess the one I would equate to like K2SO would be like Groot in like Guardians of the Galaxy. You kind of got like the big lovable, badass kind of guy there that kind of goes down for him. And one thing, I noticed too was, like I'm sitting next to my son at this, and, we're sitting at like this bistro style, theater where we got a table in front of us, and like this whole third act, like he's like kind of like leaning on the table, kind of like taking it all in. And then when K2SO died, I just watched him, and like he just sunk back in his seat.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was like I could see in like his eyes, like you can kind of see like the welling up that he was kind of destroyed when K2S went down. And I warned him before going into the movie. I was like, but I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm like, you got to be prepared that this is not going to have a happy ending. And so I think he obviously forgot that as we were watching it. And there was like kind of like, an audible, kind of like a feeling in the theater when he died that everybody was like, oh shit, this isn't going to end well. And then when you saw like everybody else die, and what I thought was probably the coolest scene of the movie, I know Jay was kind of making fun of it earlier, but the one that I liked was when the blind mercenary guy was going to the switch, and he's chanting that, I'm one with the force is with me. I'm the one with the force is with me. And I don't know if it's just a combination of the force and the stormtroopers not being able to shoot straight, but he's able to walk through all the firing on there. I think that was kind of a rip at the other ones where it's like they can't hit the broadside of a barn, and I love that scene. And then when he goes down and his companion goes over there and, he's screaming that he's down, and then he just goes, completely just like, I don't know if you guys ever played the game like Halo Reach, where it's just like at the end where it's just like, it's done. I'm just going to take out as many as I can before I get killed. And I thought like that and that were like the most badass scene in the movie was that.
Oh, Baze
I thought that was incredible.
The best go out. Yeah, Baze goes out like a total champ. I liked that.
Yeah, that scene, that section, like from Chirrut getting shot and the end of Baze, that to me is the best scene of this movie, and just about one of the best scenes I've seen in a movie this year. It is because it was so moving to me. I like Force Awakens, and Han Solo's death was moving, but I didn't really react audibly. I didn't react much when Han Solo died. Maybe it's because I saw it coming, but for some reason when Chirrut's dying in Baze's arms and he says, "Believe in the Force and I'll be there," and as he starts to fade, Baze starts repeating Chirrut's chant, saying, "The Force is with me and I'm one with the Force." And they hold on to him for a long time, saying it like 3 times. And that scene, it just got to me so much. That was the most moving thing I've seen since when like Darth Vader died in Return of the Jedi. I didn't tear up, but man, I got close, and I tear up thinking about it. Whenever when I was writing up, a review of this movie, I was thinking about that scene. It's like, man, that was so emotional. And I found, and they hit the war movie side of that more, and definitely Saving Private Ryan comes up. It's definitely like whatever his name is in Tom Hanks when he dies in Saving Private Ryan. Well, it's just like that, but it is so badass when Baze loads his gun and starts chanting it again. I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me, and starts to shoot his way past the stormtroopers. It is exactly like Barry Pepper in Saving Private Ryan, who says a prayer every time he shoots somebody. It's very, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." It's played so real and like a war movie. And it was so cool. But again, the movie just it hits you so hard because it's ended very quickly because he gets shot right away. And then a grenade goes off next to him and it's over. And it's like, that was like, my heart was really pounding in that scene. And like, I was so, I couldn't move. I could barely, like, you could hear a pin drop in theater for stuff like this. It was like, it was almost too good for a Star Wars movie, really. But that's kind of a vibe I get with a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
But I think that's kind of the problem, though, with the third act here. I do really like this third act, but I think that's kind of the problem is you got these, like I said, K2SO and these two guys who are such the likable characters in here. And after they died, I think just the wind was taken out of the audience that when we get up to, the climax between the two main characters and Krennic and everything like that, that it's almost like an afterthought at this point. At least to me it was, where it was like, the good characters already died, and okay, I know what's going to happen now because they're setting it up that no one's going to live.
I'm right there with you, Nick. I was just going to say that I think this is when the audience, if you hadn't figured it out already and hadn't guessed it, you realize nobody's getting out of this alive. And you know what? You know how I felt about the the way a lot of this goes down, and really particularly the way Jen and Cassian kind of are together at the end there. I felt like I did about Vasquez and Gorman a little bit in Aliens. You know, maybe if it had been Vasquez and like Hicks, it might have been a little more poignant and maybe a closer avatar to it. But I felt the same way about it. These two people have just gone through hell and back together, and they're like, well, you know what? We're going to get one final swing in on this, and we know we're going to win, and that's how they go out together. But you realize the inevitability is there now, that none of these people are going to survive this, because the Death Star, by the way, we haven't talked about this enough, they're lining up a shot because Tarkin's like, you know what, just nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. and he's like, I don't care who's down there. You know, I don't care if my mother's down there. I'm blowing this thing the F up. And that's exactly what they line up to do. And they're just waiting for it. And I don't know. I liked it. I mean, I had no doubt that when Krennic showed up to try to, you know, stop her from uploading the file or whatever, that I'm like, well, this is where Cassian's going to come back. And sure enough, he comes back and shoots him. I didn't know he didn't kill him, though. I thought he killed him. The fact that Krennic has to watch his, you know, the Death Star's nuclear wave come and wipe him out, I was like, man, that's the final F-U to that guy.
He didn't see it. He didn't see it coming. They aimed the Death Star at that tower he was in, and he took him out with that.
I think it's funny.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like you were killed by the thing that you worked so hard for, and now somebody's taken it from you. They just destroyed you with it. I mean, that's amazing.
It is. I mean, it's like the ultimate like F you to the guy, where it's like he's up there wounded in the tower, and they just like, nope, you're done, and they just they just blow up the tower. Then of course, I mean, the ending is very deep impact. I mean, as far as them on the beach and then watching that wave come in and then take them out and everything, and even like you bring up Aliens. You know, like when the one guy's going down after the blind guy died, that kind of reminded me of Hudson in a way, where it was just like he's just going crazy, and it's just like he ends up going down like that. I mean, we'll get to another big Aliens nod that I think this movie does in a few moments, but it's Krennic going down like that was it just showed just how, like I said, deliciously pathetic he is.
I want to say though, the ending on the beach with Jen and Cassian, I asked myself, is this cheesy? Is this too much for this kind of movie? And I think I've come down on the side that no, it's fine, because I feel like it's earned. I mean, it's, again, these characters aren't really deep, but they've gone through an arc where like they meet each other and they don't really like each other. They don't necessarily trust each other, and they learn to trust each other by the end of it. They've done a little bit of the Han and Luke thing in A New Hope. You know, they've learned how to trust each other, you know, as they've saved each other's butt a few times. And I wondered at first, I was like, did I really need them to like do this, you know, or did I want them together arm in arm? And I've decided, I kind of liked it, but I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. I mean, was the way they went down, was that cheesy or was that earned?
I thought it was totally earned, even if I thought it was, my jaw kind of dropped during that scene, because at this point in the movie, like you're saying, you thought it was like a foregone conclusion. Well, I guess everyone's dying. To me, I'm still the guy who's thinking, I'm thinking, you know, no matter what the audience is thinking, it's like, guys, remember, this is a Disney PG Star Wars movie. Come on, you know, everyone's not going to die. And when they're embracing in looking at this, you know, basically staring in the eye of this nuclear inferno they're about to be engulfed in, it's the ending of Toy Story 3. But if they did get sucked into the incinerator and burned up, and it's like, my jaw drops. Like even Sicario and Seven didn't kill the heroes before the end of the movie. I still can't believe Disney okayed that. Apparently Gareth Edwards, from what I understand, he wanted to do that in the beginning. He was like, oh yeah, well, realistically, we're going to kill the characters. But he assumed Disney wouldn't go for it, so he bailed and created another ending where Jin lives. And I guess the reshoots, they went for that darker ending. Again, I can't believe Disney allowed a movie where everybody died. I mean, because I can't think of another movie where everybody died, all the heroes died. And again, it's like it's even more worse than Saving Private Ryan, because a couple guys lived, like Private Ryan lived. And a couple of guys, I just thought
there's always somebody that makes it out right. The Dirty Dozen, like they don't all make it, but some of them make it, right? Yeah, you Magnificent Seven, same bit, right? Like somebody's got to go down, but somebody's making it out. I'll say this though, I did read one thing about this, that Edward, sure enough, didn't think they would ever let him do this or whatever, and then he had the ending for me. They're like, yeah, we're not real crazy with an ending, and he said, well, I wanted to kill them all, and they're like, yeah, kind of go with that. And they were actually for that, oddly enough. Like, they thought that was a good, bold move. The thing about this movie is that it doesn't want to take risks sometimes, but then sometimes it does. And that's kind of the balance that I think it's trying to have with itself. You know, I'm not trying to sum it up, but that's how I felt about it.
I just can't get over you guys with like Disney. Do you guys ever watch Disney movies before? Disney is not, everybody seems like, oh, Disney-fied. Disney's fucking cruel. They are.
Yeah, but,
I mean, have you guys seen Alice in Wonderland? They ate the baby clams. Okay, Disney will pull strings. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, but I'm thinking more. I was thinking more like, you know, this is the Disney that makes Marvel movies. So like, you know, like Disney's. This is like the Marvel division of Disney making this movie, and in Marvel movies, everybody makes it out. Even if Groot dies, he comes back at the end of the movie. You know.
Well, moreover, like Iron Patriot should be dead at the end of Civil War, but he's not. He's walking around in a biomech suit because Tony Stark can't let his friend die, right? Like,
and I was expecting that. I was expecting a Marvel ending, like because I just assumed it is a studio PG-13 movie. It has to have a happy ending, and like when I heard of this movie, it's like, well, you know, it'd be awesome if they really went gritty and real war movie and everyone did die, because realistically they're going up against the Empire. Of course they're going to die, but they're never going to do that. So I was just so surprised, in a way pleasantly surprised, but at the same time so depressed. And like when you come out of like Star Wars fans coming out of this movie are always like that Thursday night when it was all Star Wars fans, everyone was blown away. Like, you know, like I said in my review, people applauded at the end of the movie, and I've never seen that before, ever. Literally, I've never seen that before. But when I saw this with a group of people who aren't Star Wars fans, who are just casually, like, you know, they've only seen Force Awakens and so forth, they were depressed and they were bummed out, and they said, I did not like that. I was so, it's like, they said Force Awakens is way better, because that's instantly them going for the ending they like more, being happy. But again, I don't know who to applaud there, but I applaud somebody for going real and dark with that ending.
Well, going back to Jay's initial question was this ending deserved? And I kind of, I guess. I mean, they had to go out. I think they went out in kind of a nice poetic way. The thing that I liked, actually, that you guys haven't brought up was, when that thing's coming, there's only one person looking at the demise, and that's Jen. She's looking at that wave coming, where he's actually looking away. And yeah. I thought that was actually kind of a smart choice for them to do, was instead of them kind of like both gazing into the abyss as it comes towards them, where she's actually looking at it come, where he's kind of the weaker character, where he's closing his eyes, looking away, and just waiting for it. So I don't know. I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was what I expected. I when I heard about this movie, I mean, that was always kind of my, assumption that no one was going to live throughout this movie. I mean, I said it to my son. So I was kind of happy that they did that, because I tell you the truth, I didn't want any more Jin movies. I mean, she served her purpose. One of the big rumors that went into this movie was that she was going to end up being like Rey's mom or something like that in like Force Awakens. And it's like, people want to complain about Disney, and they got the foresight to really kind of do what's going to be working with these movies, as opposed to, George Lucas did with those prequels.
Well, we're not at the very end, though, because we're at the end of our rebellion here, because we do get this scene where we have to see how the plans get into Leia's hands, right? Like, they're going to lead us right up to that moment, and I'm expecting that at this point, because her father's been there, we've had the Jimmy Smits cameo and all this stuff, so I'm waiting for it, right? Because there's all this destruction going on, and we see these guys run onto a ship and turn around, and I'm like, oh, are we at the beginning? Are they going to like do the beginning of A New Hope for a second here? Are they going to kind of give us that? And they're giving us what happened right before that. When he comes through that door, and of course they start lighting him up, I saw him coming through that door, and my first reaction was like, holy cow. And, I'm just watching him force block all that stuff and throw these guys around and choke that dude and just lay these people out, and I'm going, holy crap, I've never seen Vader do all this shit. We've heard him talk about him doing it for movies. We've never seen it actually happen. Now we're seeing it, and it gets right up to the point where he's like looking out over the Gulf, and there's that ship going away. He's like, oh, hold on a minute, I'm gonna go get my other ship and I'll be right back. And you see that happening. The second time I watched it, I know it's coming. So I'm watching it and I'm sitting there going, as cool as this is, and it's cool, I'm beginning to go, what the hell happened to you a week later when you faced Obi-Wan? Where was all this anger and force shit then? I know it's not there, but I'm like,
well, it's because that was filmed in the 70s.
No, I know that. I know the why, but I'm going and that's why I'm backing up going, maybe we should have pulled back on that a little bit with him, because now that makes me watch A New Hope and go like, what, did you not take your arthritis medicine that day? Did you not oil the gears? I mean, are you the Tin Man?
No. You got to think of it like this, Jay. It's always going to go back to work with this movie. But if you ever get that day where it's like the boss is on you about something, or it's just like, go get it done, dude. Enough of the excuses. Go get that shit done. And I think that was kind of like Vader's motivation. There was, he was probably talking to the Emperor. The Emperor saw this stuff coming down, and he was just like, handle this shit now. And so what does he do? He flies in with his Star Destroyer, just crashes into ships, and he's just like, I'm doing this on my own. And he goes in there, and that's when he starts like kicking ass with these guys. I think with Obi-Wan, it was a little bit more of an intimate fight between them, where I think he was kind of toying with them a little bit. But this, it was like, he's got to get that sale, and he's going to go there and he's going to be hounding all the people in there to go buy that used car. He needs that sale because that general manager is on him. You got to get rid of that 2011 Ford F-150 today.
This scene, I gotta.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing here because I'm thinking of the Emperor giving the Glenn Ross speech to Vader before he goes and does this. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking of like, he's just like, closers, only closers drink coffee, Vader,
But I gotta just talk about this scene, because like this scene was a true mind blower. Like just everything about like as much as I think Gareth Edwards with Godzilla maybe showed he doesn't really care about Godzilla. This scene tells me that Gareth Edwards is the biggest Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader fan in the world. Everything about that scene, it's when they're in the airlock, the door starts to open and it's stopped, and the lights go out, we hear the breath, and he turns that saber on. I kept thinking movie, because I'm just so used to movies not doing what I want. I think, they're going to cut away, we can fill in the blanks. But they don't cut away, and I had a heart attack. The music Michael Giacchino plays is this mix of like this operatic gothic horror music and the Empire theme, and the way they scream open fire, and just seeing Vader using everything in his bag of tricks. Like he literally stops a laser bolt in the midair and sends it back at a guy, takes the guns out of their hand. My favorite bit is him pinning a guy to the ceiling and just like not even looking, just like moving his lightsaber up as he's passing him. And one guy's banging on the window screaming, "Help us." It is totally played. The rest of the movie is a war movie. It suddenly turns into a horror movie. It's Cabin in the Woods.
Oh no,
it's Alien.
No, he's Jason Voorhees at this point, dude.
It's total slasher.
He is wading through people. Yeah,
it is. And I couldn't believe it.
It's Alien 3 in the corridors. I mean, it's just like the door's shut, guys screaming, "Help me, help me, help me," and also like, he gets killed. I mean, you're right. It is a horror movie. And are we sure Gareth Edwards even directed this one? I mean, there
is contention there that maybe Tony Gilroy, who is a fantastic director in his own right, there is contention that maybe he did that. And if he did, I want him making every Star Wars movie.
But here's my question though to you guys. Is this like just such a missed opportunity from George Lucas's standpoint? Isn't this what we wanted with the prequels, was to see Vader just being badass for a whole movie? And I mean, it's just like we never got that.
Can I tell you this? I'm with you. Yeah, yes, I wanted that from the prequels, but I'm never going to get that. And I'm actually okay with the fact that we've put mystique back in Darth Vader again, for me, with this, and put a little fear back into that character. And I'm okay with the fact that, you know what, we're never going to get the full on version of that, or we may, who knows, they're going to make these forever.
Well, you kind of get it with Star Wars Rebels, that cartoon show.
Okay, but I'm talking about live action film here. We may never get that, but I'm okay with it because I think what they've peppered in enough with the good morsels I can chew out of the prequels with what was in the original trilogy, I'm fine with where Darth Vader is. And if this is the only time I see him go berserker on somebody, next time I watch A New Hope, I'm going to go, where was that useful, power you had last week? But, whatever. Maybe it's more intimate, whatever. But I'm not going to lie. It was a badass scene. And the first time I saw it, I literally sat there with popcorn in my hands waiting to go in my mouth, and it just sat there in front of me. Because I was like, holy shit. I mean, did that just happen? Because that is the most violent stuff I've ever seen one character do to a bunch of others in a Star Wars movie. We've never seen, for all how cool Darth Maul looked, he didn't do jack, compared to what Vader just did in 2 minutes to a bunch of rebel scum, basically. And
it's seeing Darth Vader in combat specifically. It's not him fighting against Luke, half letting him win because he knows he wants to capture him live. It's so dark. This is how Darth Vader kills people, and we've never seen that. This is how he goes about in a war situation, and it's just I never knew I wanted that until I saw that scene. It's instantly I thought, I want the Boba Fett movie. It's no, screw that. I want a whole movie about Darth Vader from his POV, even if it shouldn't work. It's I want that so much, because I watched the movie a second time really just to get to that scene again, and I had a heart attack both times. And no doubt that scene is what spurred on the applause in that room, because like I said, I was not expecting this movie to have any fan service at all. And that's the biggest amount of fan service I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. Force Awakens wishes it had a moment that badass. J.J. Abrams was damn, I didn't do anything as cool as that.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, it's one of those tricky situations, because it's if they ever came back and hey, we're gonna do another spin-off prequel called Vader, and showing him hunting down the remnants of the Jedi Order, you get the cynical people that would go, see, it's better when it's just trickled in. We didn't need a whole movie of that. It's just a whole pandering movie. Yeah, I mean, you get that right now, where you get the hatred. I think now it's coming 3 hours after the movie comes out, even if it's good. But it's an awesome scene. It really is. And I of course, then, we fast, we go up ahead, and they're handing off the plans. They get into the Tantive 4, and they hand it off to Princess Leia, who, I don't know what you guys thought of that scene. I think they didn't need to do it. I think it would have just worked better if they would have handed it to someone and handed it, and then you only see the back of it in a white robe, pulls down the hood, and you can just see the earmuffs, and that's Princess Leia. I don't think they had to do the face. I don't. Well, I'm of the opinion that less is more.
Well, again, unlike Tarkin, this is literally just, I think it is just one word she says. And I think it was out of place if, again, I didn't think the CGI was so good, because I defy, that is 1976 Carrie Fisher in that scene. I mean, that is again some of the best CGI I've ever seen. I mean, it wouldn't take too much convincing for me to just say that it's the best CGI, because it's just I'm looking at Carrie Fisher in that movie, and I think it was a great note to send that on, especially her saying hope, and that's the title of the next movie.
Yeah, it actually gave a little bit of meaning to what I consider to be the worst title of all the Star Wars movies. Yeah. You'll notice that when I talk about A New Hope, I just call it Star Wars. So.
Right. So, no, good point. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that it was necessary, but I was happy with it when I saw it. I was like, you know what? That's a good way to end this, because otherwise this is a dire movie. It kind of ended in real dark, and I didn't think they wanted to do that. So I was fine with it, because again, what happens 3 minutes later is the movie I really love. Is the first Star Wars movie. So I'm fine with it going. That's fine. Guys, we're at the point of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, popcorn ratings. I'm pretty sure we're all going to like this one, but I'm real curious to hear what popcorn ratings you give this one. So what are yours for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story? Nick, you go first.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I first saw this, I walked away liking the movie. If you would have asked me 5 minutes after, I would have said probably a medium popcorn. I thought it was good, not great, but just kind of revisiting some of these scenes that I really did enjoy, and some of these characters that I really did enjoy, and why I didn't like the first, the main two characters. everybody else in the movie I really did enjoy, so I can't hold it too much against the movie. And that action scenes in the end, minus a couple things I didn't really care for, I didn't think they had to be included. I thought that third act was probably the best action scene, probably since the Battle of Hoth in Empire Strikes Back. So to me, it's a large popcorn. It's a really good movie, and I know you guys probably did the rankings in the previous podcast, but for me, since we always got to rank movies nowadays, thank you, Letterboxd. Mine's got to go, of course. Empire Strikes Back is the best one, followed by Star Wars, followed by gonna have to go Return of the Jedi, just because of that Vader and Luke duel at the end and the emotion and the music and all that's the swelling that comes on with that. And then it's really a toss-up. I got to give it to The Force Awakens before Rogue One, just because I do like the two main characters of Rey and Finn a lot better than the two main characters we got here. And then after that, of course, it's going to go probably Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith being the worst. So that's my rankings.
All right, Kurt, what about you?
Well, like I said earlier, I actually had rather low expectations for Rogue One. I had a movie in my head I was hoping for, but I figured it wouldn't be this movie, and that it would be a very humorless, dead serious, not fun, no popcorn factor whatsoever, and just a movie trying as hard as possible not to be Star Wars. That tried to be above the material. Like a lot of people who wanted this movie to be not Star Wars, they clearly are not Star Wars fans, and I was quite frankly surprised how this movie turned out to be the exact opposite of that. While being a very gritty sci-fi war movie, it absolutely was made by people who are diehard Star Wars fans. When it's funny, it's organically funny. The characters were great. The action and the effects overall, never mind the characters, like that space battle, those effects are just outstanding. And there's no end to the fan moments. Putting Tarkin in the movie, being the most expensive Easter egg in cinema history. I love that. Making Darth Vader scary, like Mads Mikkelsen was talking about it. He summed it up great. This is Mads Mikkelsen, the guy, who has been a Bond villain and Hannibal Lecter. He knows what it means to be a villain. And he said, maybe before Rogue One, you might think, what, I could probably take Vader. And then this movie made him so much scarier than he's ever been. Because now when you see Vader, I went back and look at some scenes of the original trilogy. And now when I see Vader, I think of a guy, it's like, oh my God, if he got my hands on me, he's going to kill me. And I never thought of Vader that way before. And it just made him so much lethal and scary. And that Vader scene alone, even if I hated the movie up to that point, I'd say you got to see the movie just for that scene. Sneak in for the last 2 minutes, whatever. And as far as rankings, I can quickly go through that. I'd say, Empire number 1, Episode 4 is number 2. And I don't care. I'm a huge fan of Revenge of the Sith. That's number 3. Then I go Rogue One, which I think is phenomenal. Then Return of the Jedi. Then Force Awakens. Because again, I want to stress, I absolutely think this is so much better than Force Awakens. And I like Force Awakens. I don't want to make it sound like I hate that movie. I really enjoy it. I had a blast, but not like this movie because I loved it. I think 2016 has been the worst year for movies that I can recall. There's some good stuff on the way, but it's been such a boring year for movies, and I kind of almost lost a zest for movies a little bit. Then I saw Rogue One. It's like that's what I was looking for that kind of fantasy and adventure and action and tension, and it delivered everything I wanted and more. And it is one of the best movies of 2016, one of my favorites, and I give it an extra large popcorn for sure.
I'm going to revisit my Star Wars rankings here, having not listened to our last episode of where I put them, because those things evolve. But always, for me, Episode 4 is my favorite one, then followed by Episode 5, obviously Empire Strikes Back. And then I would put Revenge of the Sith in there, but I would probably replace it with Force Awakens. I really liked that film. And then I would put Revenge of the Sith, and then probably this one. before I started getting into any of the other ones. Phantom Menace is the bottom for me, always will be. But I would put Rogue One below Force Awakens. I enjoyed Force Awakens a lot. Yeah, it's a rehash a little bit, and it's a lot of service, but it's for the reason that Nick mentioned. Rey and Finn are such good characters. I can't wait to see what they do with them. I'm really excited about it. Jen and Cassian here, they served a purpose. And they had a mission. You know, they're the parts of war we don't want to talk about, but the people that do the things that make the rest of it work, you know, for us, the people that sacrifice like that, they're the forgotten parts of those stories often. But and I think that's why their story is so good. And I think that's why ultimately this movie works. Is even though I guessed the two big things in it, I didn't see the Darth Vader part coming, but I knew the two other parts. And honestly, haven't seen it now twice. I don't care. I was fine with it because even where it drags a little bit, there's enough fun in that third act, in particular the way that it pays off, and ultimately because Krennic is such a good character, and Nick, you've nailed it. He's so deliciously pathetic, you know, to watch, and I think that performance is fantastic. This film pays off exactly what it needs to, and it leads me right to where I want to go back to my favorite movie in the series. And so for that reason, I had a great time with it. I can't give it an extra large popcorn. I don't think it's the best thing I've seen all year, but is it a really good way to end what has, and I'll agree with Kurt, has been kind of a meh year in theaters? Heck yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I definitely think it's worth seeing again. I can't wait for it to come out. I'll definitely add it to the collection to watch again. Probably will catch it in theaters again before it's all said and done because I had fun with this. I mean, ultimately, I can go in for 2 hours and just have a good time, and that's what this movie does. So I'm going to give it a large popcorn. It's a strong large and a good entry in the series, and I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. I don't know that this was the story I would have started with if I was going to do spinoffs, because to me it's the simplest one. They know the plans are here, they go steal them, they deliver them, boom. You know, that's kind of it. It's about as simple as Mad Max Fury Road. They go 1 hour that way, and then they turn around and go an hour back this way. You know, I mean, that's really what that movie is. And some people spray paint their teeth along the way. You know, I mean, and woman power and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's the ride of getting there that makes Fury Road so great and so much worth it. And that's the same with this. Even though I know how this is going to end, and I know where it all leads to, the ride to get there, while it has a few bumps, is still worth it. And I don't know that I would have chosen this as the first Star Wars spinoff movie, but I'm kind of glad they did now, because it's the perfect balance of doing something familiar enough and reminding people of something that they really liked, which is what Force Awakens was really good at doing. And then also taking some chances and risks with characters we hadn't seen. We hadn't had a smart-ass robot that really was one. I mean, R2 was one, but nobody knows what he's saying. You know, so we have to react to it, you know, and maybe Chewie is, but we still don't know what he's saying. K2's great. You got this super Force worshiper. We've never seen anybody like that, except in the prequels, and those guys were so out of touch with reality that they lost control, you know, of things. So to see something like that, and then to see the camaraderie of a ragtag group like this that really throws themselves together because they're like, we know we can do this, and they go get it done, makes it worth it. And so, yeah, good entry, a lot of fun with it, and a good way to end 2016. We've had a busy year, guys, on Filmstrip. Reviewed a lot of stuff, and 2017 is looking fun too. We've already teased it a little bit. Kurt, you and I are going to be doing 10 Stanley Kubrick films throughout the year 2017, going from 1955's The Killing all the way up through Eyes Wide Shut. So that'll
be interesting.
That will be, yeah. They talk about a change. We'll be talking about some of that, but there'll be some other ones along the way. There'll be some along the way I haven't seen, actually. So I'm curious to visit those. Nick, you and I have got a lot of good stuff coming, man. We are going to be doing some big horror franchises in the coming year. We're doing, well, you've already mentioned it, and I did too. We're doing Jaws. We're all 4 of those are coming up. We're going to do the Saw franchise, and we're going to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre, both of which have entries coming out in the next year. And we're going to pick up some stuff that it has got new entries coming in too. There's supposed to be a new Hellraiser direct video, which I can't wait to get to. I don't know about you, Nick, but we need to pick up and do some of the other stuff that's happened too. There's been a new Blair Witch movie we need to go back and revisit, and some other things along the way. And we've talked enough about Disney here. Who knows? We might do one of those somewhere. So here, but lots of cool stuff coming in 2017. For you folks. And of course, you can keep up with all of it by subscribing to us on iTunes, Continuous Play Podcast Filmstrip. You can find our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Hook up with us on social media. Let us know what you think of the show. We appreciate your support, and thank you for another great year of podcasting. Guys, we've been doing this podcast now almost 10 years, or not almost 10 years. We've been doing this podcast, guys, for 7 years now. That's a long time. And I would have never thought that we'd be doing this 7 years later when we started it way back when. But yay-lo, there's just still stuff to see. And as we know on Facebook and on the Fabish Factor the page, we can always argue about something. So
oh, yes, we can.
Yes, whether it's what Christmas tree this movie was in, or how big of a douche Quentin Tarantino really is, or
I still think the three of us need to review The Lobster.
We really don't.
I haven't seen that. I don't know who to believe. You two have been messing with me about this for so much. I don't know what to think, but my instinct is to say no. But I do know this. There is a clamoring on the internet for us to come back and do that second Anaconda movie. So that's probably going to happen. At some point, we will twist Kurt's arm into that in 2017, because how can you turn that down? I mean, it's the first one was gold, so we'll
be on board.
Yeah, but
large popcorn gold.
We're getting a new Alien movie though too, so I'm curious to see what Alien Covenant has to offer us. So we'll get into that one. I've seen the trailer at this point, and I got to tell you, Kurt, you talk about trailers make you want to go see movies. That one made me go like, if I wasn't doing a podcast on it, I'd just wait till it came on HBO, because I don't know that I want to see it. But I was like, I don't know. I had this strange familiar feeling come over me, like I was watching Aliens vs. Predator again for some reason. So. But anyway, we'll maybe get to that. But there's lots of stuff we want to review, folks, and we will get to that later on down the line. So again, for Kurt and Nick, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Please leave us a positive review on iTunes and link up with us on Facebook. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121.